They told him he'd never be a hero, that without a quirk, he was just another face in the crowd. But they didn't see the spark buried underneath, a body that wouldn't stay broken, a will that refused to stay down. Izuku Midoriya wasn't born with power, he was born with the need to protect. And in a world where power defines worth, he found another way, through pain, through trial, through evolution. Every blow reshaped him, every challenge rebuilt him. What he lacked in gifts, he made up for in adaptation, not just surviving, but transforming. Now imagine this. What if Izuku Midoriya was never truly quirkless? What if his body held the ultimate defense, a quirk that could adapt to anything it faced? Fire, force, fear, a body that learned and evolved. This is that story, a different path, a different Deku, one who doesn't break, he adapts. ChronoCrew Legends, welcome to What If Deku Had Reactive Adaptation.
Welcome, Legends, to Chronos Recom. I wrote this story myself, so if you've got an idea for the next part or a brand new What If you want to see, drop it in the comments below. And if you're enjoying the ride, don't forget to like, subscribe, and tap that bell so you never miss an upload. Now, let's jump straight into the story.
The steady beep of medical equipment filled the sterile examination room as 4-year-old Izuku Midoriya sat nervously on the paper-covered table. His mother, Inko, stood nearby, her fingers anxiously intertwined as they waited for the doctor's diagnosis. "Well, young man," the doctor said, reviewing the x-rays with practiced indifference. "It appears you're one of the unlucky ones. You don't have the joint structure typically seen in quirk-bearing individuals." Izuku's face crumpled, tears welling in his wide green eyes. "So I don't have a quirk?" The doctor adjusted his glasses, studying the child with unusual intensity. "That's correct. You're part of the quirkless minority, approximately 20% of the population." What neither Izuku nor his mother noticed was the doctor's careful assessment of the boy's cellular structure displayed on a secondary monitor. The screen showed something extraordinary, dormant genetic markers with tremendous adaptive potential. The doctor had seen these patterns before, in research provided by a specific benefactor interested in evolutionary quirk development. "I'll need to administer a standard immunization before you go," the doctor said casually, preparing a syringe filled with clear liquid. "It's protocol for all children your age, especially those without quirks." As the needle pierced Izuku's skin, the doctor observed with clinical detachment. The serum, derived from research funded by an enigmatic figure known only to the doctor as Sensei, was designed to activate dormant evolutionary pathways. Whether it would work remained to be seen. "There we go," the doctor said, disposing of the syringe. "The disappointment is difficult, I know, but your son can still live a fulfilling life without a quirk." Later that evening, Izuku sat before the computer screen in his bedroom, tears streaming down his face as he watched All Might's debut video for what must have been the 1000th time. "Can I be a hero even without a quirk?" he whispered to the empty room. For years, the answer seemed to be a resounding no. At 10 years old, Izuku had grown accustomed to Katsuki Bakugo's bullying. The explosive boy had only become more vicious as his quirk developed, taking particular delight in tormenting his quirkless childhood friend. That afternoon in the schoolyard, something changed. Bakugo had cornered a smaller child, demanding the boy's collectible hero cards while demonstrating his explosive quirk threateningly. "Leave him alone, Kaken," Izuku shouted, stepping between Bakugo and the frightened child. Bakugo's face twisted with familiar disdain. "Get out of the way, useless Deku." "No," Izuku said, his voice steadier than he felt. "Heroes don't bully people weaker than them. Heroes protect others. You want to be a hero?" Bakugo snarled, raising his palm as small explosions crackled. "Then learn how to take a hit." The explosion hit Izuku directly in the chest, but instead of the expected pain and force, something extraordinary happened. His skin rippled and changed color, shifting to a burnished copper hue with an almost metallic sheen. Bakugo's eyes widened in shock. What the? Izuku looked down at his transformed skin in amazement. The explosion had done nothing. No pain, no damage, not even soot marks on his uniform. I think I have a quirk, Izuku whispered in disbelief. Bakugo's face contorted with rage. No way, you're quirkless. The doctor said so. Izuku stood taller, newfound confidence flowing through him as his skin gradually returned to normal. Maybe I was a late bloomer, but I do have a quirk, Kaken, and I'm going to use it to become a hero. A real hero who protects people. From that day forward, everything changed. Izuku spent every spare moment testing his newfound abilities. He discovered that his body would adapt reactively to whatever threat it faced. When exposed to fire, his skin became fireproof. When struck with force, his body hardened to absorb the impact. When cut, his skin became impenetrable. Each adaptation initially lasted only as long as the threat persisted, but Izuku found that repeated exposure to the same stimulus resulted in permanent adaptations. Through deliberate, progressive training, exposing himself to increasingly difficult challenges, he transformed his once ordinary body into something extraordinary. By age 14, intensive weight training had adapted his muscles and skeleton to support tremendous force. Endurance running had optimized his cardiovascular system. Controlled exposure to harmful elements had enhanced his immune system and toxin resistance. His once frail body had become a steel-like fortress of adaptive potential. Most importantly, his confidence had grown alongside his physical capabilities. No longer the timid, bullied child, Izuku Midoriya stood tall. A formidable young man with analytical intelligence and a body that could adapt to overcome virtually any challenge. All of this was hidden beneath regular school uniforms and careful restraint. Izuku had learned that some adaptations were more visible than others, and he preferred to keep his abilities private until he could debut properly as a hero. His mother was the only person who knew the full extent of his capabilities, having watched with a mixture of pride and concern as her son transformed himself through years of dedicated, sometimes dangerous training. As UA's entrance exam approached, Izuku felt ready to show the world what he could do. His hero notebooks were filled with detailed analyses of pro heroes and their techniques, alongside meticulous records of his own adaptive capabilities. The quirkless boy who once cried before computer screens was gone, replaced by a young man whose body had literally evolved to become a hero. The morning of UA's entrance exam dawned bright and clear. Izuku approached the massive gates with steady confidence, his muscular frame evident even beneath his school uniform. Years of adaptive training had transformed him physically, broad shoulders, defined muscles, and perfect posture, giving him a commanding presence despite his relatively average height. "Get out of my way, Deku," came a familiar voice from behind. Izuku turned to see Bakugo approaching, his perpetual scowl firmly in place. Their relationship had evolved into a cold rivalry after Izuku's quirk manifested. While the explosive attacks no longer worked against Izuku's adapted skin, Bakugo's pride wouldn't allow him to acknowledge defeat. "Good morning to you too, Kaken," Izuku replied evenly. "Let's both do our best today." Bakugo clicked his tongue and pushed past, but Izuku noticed the tension in his rival's shoulders. For all his bluster, Bakugo was nervous, a realization that would have once seemed impossible. Inside the orientation hall, Izuku listened attentively as Present Mike explained the practical exam. Battle robots worth different point values would be scattered throughout a mock city, and examinees would earn points by destroying them. Simple enough. "Excuse me." A serious-looking boy with glasses stood up rigidly. "You stated there were 3 types of villains, but the handout clearly shows 4. Such an error is unbecoming of UA, Japan's top hero program." After President Mike clarified that the 4th robot was worth 0 points and best avoided, the bespectacled student turned to glare at Izuku, who had been muttering analysis under his breath. "And you, if you can't take this seriously, you should leave now. You're distracting those of us who came to become heroes." Izuku met his gaze without flinching. "I apologize for the distraction, but I assure you I'm taking this very seriously." Something in Izuku's calm confidence made the other student hesitate before sitting down. When they were dismissed to their respective battle centers, Izuku took a moment to center himself. His body had adapted over years of training, but this would be his first true test against mechanized opponents. As he changed into his track suit, several other examinees glanced his way, surprised by his physique. The lean muscle and unusual density of his adapted body drew attention, but Izuku remained focused on the task ahead. At the massive gates of Battle Center B, Izuku stood ready. He noticed a brown-haired girl nearby, looking nervous but determined. He offered her an encouraging smile just as Present Mix's voice boomed, "Start!" While others hesitated in confusion, Izuku was already moving. His adapted reflexes allowed him to reach the first robot before anyone else had even entered the Mach City. A one-pointer lunged at him with mechanical arms. Izuku didn't dodge, instead meeting the attack head-on with a devastating punch that tore through metal like paper. His fist, adapted through years of progressively striking harder materials, didn't even register pain as the robot collapsed in a heap of twisted components. "One down," he muttered, already sprinting toward the next target. Two three-pointers converged on him from opposite directions. Izuku leapt upward, his leg muscles adapted for extraordinary jumping power, and came down between them. With precision born from countless hours of training, he delivered simultaneous strikes to both machines, his hands temporarily taking on a metallic sheen as they punctured robot armor. Throughout the Mach City, other examinees stared in awe as Izuku tore through robot after robot with ruthless efficiency. His movements were fluid and economical, wasting no energy as he systematically accumulated points. A two-pointer fired a projectile at him from behind. Without even looking, Izuku's body adapted instantly, his skin hardening to deflect the attack harmlessly. He spun and closed the distance in a blur, ripping the robot's sensor unit from its chassis. "That's 28, he counted mentally, scanning for more targets. The ground suddenly trembled. Buildings shook as a colossal zero-pointer emerged, towering over the Mach City like a mechanical titan. "That's much bigger than I expected," Izuku admitted, momentarily impressed. Most examinees turned and fled, recognizing the behemoth as an obstacle rather than an opportunity. Izuku was about to do the same when he heard a cry of pain. The brown-haired girl from earlier was trapped beneath rubble, directly in the zero-pointer's path. Without hesitation, Izuku sprinted toward her. As he ran, his body began adapting in preparation for the immense force he would need. Muscles densifying, bones reinforcing, skin hardening to a metallic sheen. "Are you all right?" he asked, kneeling beside the trapped girl. "My ankle," she winced. "I can't move." The zero-pointer loomed closer, its massive treads crushing everything in its path. Izuku assessed the situation instantly. He could free her and escape, but there wasn't enough time for both. Decision made, he turned toward the robot. "What are you doing?" the girl cried. "Being a hero," Izuku replied simply. He crouched, his legs adapting to channel maximum force. Then, with an explosive leap that cracked the pavement beneath him, Izuku rocketed upward, directly toward the zero-pointer's face. His body continued adapting mid-flight, concentrating mass and density into his right arm. As he reached the apex of his jump, level with the robot's sensor array, Izuku unleashed a punch with every ounce of his adapted strength. The impact was catastrophic. Metal shrieked and buckled as the zero-pointer's entire head caved inward from the force. Momentum carried Izuku's fist through the primary control unit and out the other side, leaving a gaping hole in the mechanical behemoth. As the zero-pointer began to topple backward, Izuku realized his predicament. He was now falling from a dangerous height. His body adapted instantly, reconfiguring to absorb the imminent impact. Even so, landing would be rough. Before he could hit the ground, he felt a strange sensation, the elimination of gravity itself. The brown-haired girl had somehow freed herself and touched him with her quirk, causing him to float gently downward. "Thank you," he said as his feet touched the ground. "That was a close one." "I should be thanking you," she replied, her face slightly green from overusing her quirk. "That was amazing. You completely destroyed that huge robot with one punch." Before Izuku could respond, Present Mix's voice announced the end of the exam. Looking around, Izuku realized many of the examinees were staring at him with expressions ranging from awe to disbelief. Even the serious student with glasses was watching him with reassessment in his eyes. Recovery Girl arrived to heal the injured, including the brown-haired girl. As Izuku prepared to leave, he caught a glimpse of a skinny blonde man watching him from the observation tower, a calculating expression on his gaunt face. Later, when the results arrived, Izuku wasn't surprised to find himself ranked first in the entrance exam. 97 villain points and 60 rescue points, a total that shattered all previous records. What did surprise him was the personal note attached to his acceptance letter, requesting a private meeting with UA's principal and the symbol of peace himself, All Might. 1 week before classes officially began, Izuku found himself in Principal Nizu's office, seated across from the diminutive principal and the skeletal form of All Might in his true appearance. Young Midoriya, All Might began. Your performance in the entrance exam was nothing short of extraordinary. I've been teaching at UA for a while now, and I've never seen anything quite like it. Thank you, sir, Izuku replied politely. Your quirk registration lists you as quirkless until age 10, Nizu observed, reviewing a file. Then suddenly, you manifested an extremely powerful ability called reactive adaptation. Can you explain how this works? Izuku nodded. My body automatically adapts to threats or challenges. If I'm hit with fire, I become fireproof. If I'm struck with force, my body hardens to resist it. With training, I've been able to make many adaptations permanent. All Might leaned forward. And there are no drawbacks? No limitations. There are limits, Izuku acknowledged. The more extreme the adaptation, the more energy it requires. And completely new threats take longer to adapt to than familiar ones. But through controlled exposure and progressive training, I've been able to develop significant baseline adaptations. All Might and Nizu exchanged a meaningful glance before the principal spoke again. Mr. Midoriya, are you familiar with a quirk called One for All? Izuku's brow furrowed. No, sir. I don't believe I've heard of it. All Might's form suddenly expanded, muscle and power inflating his body to heroic proportions. One for All is the quirk that I possess, he announced in his public voice before deflating back to his true form in a puff of steam. A quirk passed down from generation to generation, growing stronger with each bearer. Izuku's eyes widened. You pass your quirk to others? Indeed, All Might confirmed. And I've been searching for a successor. Originally, I intended to find someone quirkless, as I once was, to inherit this power. But your performance and character have convinced me that you may be an even better candidate despite already having a powerful quirk. My time as the symbol of peace is limited, All Might continued, lifting his shirt to reveal a horrific scar on his side. An injury from a battle 5 years ago has severely damaged my body. Soon, I won't be able to maintain my hero form at all. Izuku processed this revelation with a maturity that impressed both educators. Why me? Surely there are other worthy candidates. There are, Nizu agreed. But we believe your reactive adaptation quirk might be uniquely compatible with One for All. The stockpiled power of One for All typically causes tremendous strain on a new user's body, often resulting in broken bones and tissue damage when first wielded. Your ability to adapt to physical stress could potentially eliminate this drawback. More importantly, All Might added, you demonstrated true heroism during the exam. When you saved that girl from the zero-pointer, you weren't calculating points or advantages. You acted purely to protect someone in danger, the essence of what it means to be a hero. Izuku sat quietly, contemplating this unexpected offer. If I accepted, how would this work? You would ingest some of my DNA, a hair would suffice, and your body would incorporate the quirk, All Might explained. Then we would begin training you to use it alongside your natural abilities. Would it affect my existing quirk? That's what we're curious about, Nizu said. The interaction between reactive adaptation and One for All could be fascinating from a quirk theory perspective. It might enhance both abilities, or they might function independently. Izuku didn't need long to decide. If you believe I'm worthy, then I accept. I want to become a hero who can save everyone with a fearless smile. Just like you, All Might. The following weeks were dedicated to intensive training. Izuku ingested one of All Might's hairs, a strange experience, and felt the new power settle within him, distinct from his adaptation quirk, but somehow compatible with it. When he first attempted to activate One for All at 100%, his body instantly adapted to reject the self-destructive energy, automatically channeling it to a safer level. Through experimentation, they discovered that 50% was his optimal starting threshold, his adaptive quirk allowing him to handle far more power than any previous inheritor at the beginning. Even more intriguingly, as Izuku trained with One for All, his body continuously adapted to accommodate more of its power, gradually increasing his safe threshold. By the time classes began, Izuku had integrated both quirks into a formidable combination, reactive adaptation providing defensive capabilities and physical optimization, while One for All supplied overwhelming offensive power at levels that would cripple most users. All Might watched his protege with pride and fascination. Young Midoriya was developing faster than any previous One for All user, his adaptive quirk accelerating the mastery process exponentially. The symbol of peace could rest easier knowing his legacy would be inherited by someone truly extraordinary. The first day of classes at UA found Izuku perfectly composed as he entered Class 1A. Several students were already seated, including the serious-looking boy from the entrance exam and, to Izuku's mild surprise, Bakugo. "Deku," Bakugo growled from his seat. "Don't think getting first place in the entrance exam means anything. I'm still going to crush you." Before Izuku could respond, the bespectacled student approached with formal rigidity. "I must apologize for my behavior during the orientation. I am Tenya Ida from Semi-Private Academy." "Izuku Midoriya," he replied with a polite smile. "No apology necessary. You realize there was more to the practical exam than just defeating villains." Ida continued earnestly. "You perceived the deeper challenge while I was blinded by the obvious. I misjudged you completely." Their conversation was interrupted by an excited voice. "Hey, it's you, the punch guy." Izuku turned to see the brown-haired girl from the entrance exam. "You're the one who saved me from that fall. I never got to properly thank you." "I'm Achiko Uraraka." She introduced herself with a bright smile. "Your punch against that huge robot was amazing. You were like POW." She mimicked the punch with enthusiasm. "If you're here to make friends, you can leave now," came a monotone voice from the doorway. The students turned to find a man encased in a yellow sleeping bag, looking exhausted and irritated. He unzipped the bag and stepped out, revealing dark clothes and a capture weapon around his neck. "It took you all 8 seconds to quiet down. Time is a precious resource. I'm Shota Aizawa, your homeroom teacher." Aizawa instructed them to change into gym uniforms and meet at the PE grounds. As the class complied, whispers circulated about this unexpected first-day activity. At the training field, Aizawa explained they would be taking a quirk apprehension test, 8 physical trials to assess their quirk capabilities. When Uraraka questioned why they weren't attending the entrance ceremony, Aizawa's response was blunt. "UA is known for its freestyle teaching approach. That applies to teachers as well." His eyes narrowed. "Midoriya, you finished first in the entrance exam. What was your best softball throw in middle school?" 72 meters, Izuku answered. "Try it with your quirk this time," Aizawa instructed, tossing him a ball. "Anything goes. Just stay in the circle." Izuku stepped forward, calculating. His adaptive strength alone would send the ball flying, but adding One for All would demonstrate his true capabilities. As he wound up, he channeled 50% of One for All through his adapted arm, feeling the perfect synergy of his quirks working in harmony. The ball left his hand like a missile, creating a sonic boom that made several classmates cover their ears. It vanished into the blue sky, becoming a tiny speck before disappearing completely. Aizawa held up his device. 1,507.2 meters. The class erupted in excited chatter. "Whoa! That's insane! What kind of quirk does he have?" Bakugo's face contorted with rage. "Deku, how did you get so powerful? Your quirk isn't supposed to do that." Before he could charge forward, Aizawa's capture weapon wrapped around him. "Don't make me use my quirk. I have dry eye." As the restraints fell away, Bakugo glared at Izuku with renewed intensity. Throughout the remaining tests, Izuku demonstrated overwhelming physical superiority. In the grip strength test, his adaptive muscle control registered 610 kilograms. For the standing long jump, he cleared the entire sandbox and landed far beyond. The repeated sidesteps were a blur of perfect efficiency as his body optimized movement patterns in real time. During the distance run, Izuku's cardiovascular adaptations allowed him to maintain a blistering pace without fatigue, finishing far ahead of even those with speed enhancement quirks. What most observers missed were the subtle adaptations occurring throughout each test. Muscle fibers reconfiguring for optimal performance, bone density shifting to support explosive movements, even his skin texture changing to reduce air resistance during speed trials. Only Aizawa seemed to notice these details, his trained eyes narrowing thoughtfully as he observed Izuku's performance. When the tests concluded, Aizawa displayed the comprehensive rankings. Izuku stood firmly at the top with Yaoyorozu, Todoroki, and Bakugo following in that order. By the way, I was lying about expelling someone, Aizawa announced casually. That was a logical ruse to bring out your best performances. While most students reacted with relief, Yaoyorozu commented that it should have been obvious. Izuku, however, had noticed something in Aizawa's eyes. The teacher had absolutely been prepared to expel someone had the results disappointed him. As they headed back to change, Aizawa stopped Izuku. Your quirk, reactive adaptation, correct? How does it work with erasure? Izuku blinked in surprise. I'm not sure, sir. I've never encountered an erasure quirk before. Let's find out, Aizawa said, his eyes glowing red as his hair lifted. Izuku felt a strange sensation, as if part of his power had been muffled. One for all is gone, he realized immediately. But the adaptations I've already developed remain. Aizawa nodded. Interesting. Your pre-existing adaptations aren't affected, but you can't create new ones while I'm watching you. That suggests your quirk has both transformation and accumulation aspects. He blinked, releasing his erasure. Your file lists a late quirk manifestation. That's unusual. Yes, sir. It appeared when I was 10. Aizawa seemed unconvinced but didn't press further. Don't get complacent, Midoriya. Power without control and judgment is worthless in a hero. I understand, sir. As Izuku rejoined his classmates, he could feel their eyes on him. Some with admiration, others with curiosity, and at least one with simmering resentment. He had established himself as the top student on the first day, but he knew this was just the beginning of his journey at UA. The second day of classes brought a welcome change, foundational hero studies with All Might himself. The classroom buzzed with excitement as the number 1 hero burst through the door with theatrical flair. I am here. Coming through the door like a normal person, All Might stood resplendent in his Silver Age costume, his perpetual smile beaming at the starstruck students. Welcome to the most important class at UA Hero Basic Training. Today's lesson, Battle Training. He directed them to collect their hero costumes, created from their specifications and support company designs. Minutes later, Class 1A emerged onto the field in their various hero outfits. Izuku's costume was deceptively simple, a dark green bodysuit with reinforced padding, designed to accommodate his body's adaptive changes without restricting movement. The only distinctive feature was a stylized emblem on the chest, representing both adaptation and his hero name idea. Adapt. Looking good, everyone, All Might announced. Now, let's begin with indoor battle training. Villains have hidden a nuclear weapon inside a building. The heroes must either capture the villains or secure the weapon. The villains win if they protect the weapon until time expires or capture the heroes. Teams were determined by lottery. Izuku found himself paired with Uraraka as the hero team, facing Bakugo and Ida as the villains for the first match. Inside the monitoring room, All Might provided each team with floor plans, capture tape, and a brief preparation period. While Ida took his villain role seriously, Bakugo had only one focus. Finally, he growled. A chance to show everyone how much stronger I am than you, Deku. Izuku and Uraraka used their prep time strategizing. Kaken will come after me immediately, Izuku explained. His pride won't let him do otherwise. We can use that. While he's focused on me, you can slip past to locate the weapon. Are you sure you'll be okay? Uraraka asked, concerned. He seems really angry. Izuku smiled confidently. My quirk is perfectly suited to counter his. Don't worry about me. When the exercise began, they entered through a ground floor window. Almost immediately, Bakugo ambushed them from around a corner, leading with a massive explosion. Uraraka, go! Izuku commanded, stepping directly into the blast. The explosion engulfed him completely, but when the smoke cleared, Izuku stood unharmed. His skin had taken on that now familiar burnished copper appearance, perfectly adapted to neutralize Bakugo's explosions. That won't work on me anymore, Kaken? Izuku said calmly as Uraraka slipped away up the stairs. It hasn't since we were 10. Bakugo's face contorted with rage. Don't underestimate me, Deku. I've gotten a lot stronger since then. He charged forward, unleashing a barrage of explosions more powerful than any he'd produced before. Izuku didn't dodge, instead walking steadily through the inferno, his body continuously adapting to negate the increasing heat and force. How are you doing this? Bakugo demanded, frustration evident in his voice. Reactive adaptation, Izuku explained, closing the distance between them. My body automatically counters any threat it faces, and I've been training it against your explosions for years. In the monitoring room, the other students watched in amazement. He's walking through those explosions like they're nothing, Kaminari exclaimed. It's more than that, Yaoyorozu observed astutely. His body is actually changing at the molecular level to neutralize the specific properties of Bakugo's quirk. Back in the battle, Bakugo switched tactics, attempting to maneuver behind Izuku for his signature move. Howitzer impact! The massive explosion rocked the entire building. But again, Izuku emerged unscathed. My turn, he said quietly, channeling 40% of one for all into his adapted muscles. The movement was almost too fast to follow. A quick step forward, a pivoted hip, and a perfect counterpunch that caught Bakugo in the solar plexus. The explosive student folded from the controlled but devastating impact, dropping to one knee as the air left his lungs. Before Bakugo could recover, Izuku had secured his wrists with capture tape. Bakugo has been captured, All Might's voice announced over the communication system. Meanwhile, Uraraka had located the weapon room where Ida was patrolling diligently. Using her zero-gravity quirk, she floated pieces of debris as a distraction before launching herself toward the weapon. The hero team wins, All Might declared as Uraraka touched the nuclear model. Back in the monitoring room, All Might reviewed the match. The MVP of this exercise is Midoriya. Can anyone tell me why? Yaoyorozu raised her hand. Midoriya formed a perfect counter-strategy. He recognized Bakugo's personal vendetta would make him predictable and used that to create an opening for his partner. Additionally, he showed remarkable restraint, using only the minimum force necessary to subdue his opponent without causing injury. Excellent analysis, All Might confirmed. Young Midoriya demonstrated not just power, but the tactical thinking essential to professional heroism. As the other matches proceeded, Izuku observed each classmate carefully, analyzing their quirks and fighting styles for future reference. Todoroki's overwhelming ice power, Tokoyami's sentient shadow, Yaoyorozu's creation ability. Each demonstrated fascinating potential. After classes, as Izuku prepared to leave, he found his path blocked by Bakugo. This isn't over, Deku, Bakugo snarled, though his usual fire seemed dimmed by the day's defeat. I'm going to keep getting stronger until I find a way past that adaptation quirk of yours. Then we'll see who's really the best. Izuku met his gaze steadily. I look forward to it, Kaken. A good rival pushes you to improve. Something flickered across Bakugo's face. Surprise at the response, perhaps, or reluctant acknowledgement. Without another word, he turned and stalked away. As Izuku walked home that evening, he reflected on the day's events. His combined quirks had performed exactly as he'd hoped, but he recognized the dangers of complacency. If he truly wanted to become the world's greatest hero, he would need to keep pushing his limits and developing new applications for his abilities. Little did he know how soon those abilities would be tested against real villains. 3 days later, Class 1A boarded a bus headed for an off-campus training facility. Aizawa explained they would be practicing rescue operations under the guidance of the space hero 13. Today you'll be learning to use your quirks to save lives, Aizawa stated flatly. Many of you have powers well suited for combat, but a hero's primary duty is to protect civilians. On the bus, Izuku found himself drawn into conversation with his classmates for the first time. Azui, a frog quirk user, addressed him directly. Midoriya, I always say what's on my mind. Your quirk seems similar to All Might. Izuku nearly choked, caught off guard by the unexpected observation. What makes you say that, Azui? Call me Tsu. The incredible strength you displayed in the fitness tests reminded me of All Might's power. That's just one aspect of my reactive adaptation, Izuku explained carefully. My body can develop different capabilities based on the challenges it faces. I focused a lot on strength training, so that's a primary adaptation. That's such an amazing quirk, Kirishima exclaimed. It's like the ultimate combination of offense and defense. So manly. The conversation shifted as others discussed the public appeal of their various quirks. Izuku listened attentively, analyzing each classmate's self-assessment against his own observations of their capabilities. Upon arriving at the unforeseen simulation joint, USJ, they were greeted by 13, the rescue specialist whose spacesuit-like costume concealed their gender. This facility is designed to prepare you for different rescue scenarios, 13 explained, gesturing to various zones representing different disasters: fire, flood, landslide, and more. As 13 began discussing the dangerous potential of quirks, Aizawa suddenly tensed, his attention fixed on the central plaza below. "Gather together and don't move," he commanded sharply. 13. Protect the students. A swirling black mist had appeared in the plaza, expanding to form a portal from which emerged dozens of sinister figures. "What's that?" Kirishima asked, stepping forward. "Is this like the entrance exam?" "Don't move," Aizawa barked. "Those are villains." The mist consolidated into a shadowy humanoid form as a pale man covered in disembodied hands stepped through. Beside him lumbered a massive, bird-beaked creature with exposed brain tissue. "Eraserhead and 13, the mist villain observed. "According to the schedule, All Might should be here as well. So this is a carefully planned sneak attack," Aizawa concluded, pulling his goggles into place. "Where is he?" demanded the hand-covered villain, scratching his neck compulsively. "We brought our anti-symbol of peace measure all this way, Nomu." The massive creature beside him gave no response, but its presence alone sent chills through the observing students. Aizawa instructed 13 to evacuate the students while he held off the villains. Despite Izuku's concerns about Aizawa's close combat quirk against so many opponents, the teacher launched himself into battle with surprising effectiveness. As the class retreated toward the exit, the warp villain materialized to block their path. "Greetings, we are the League of Villains. Forgive our audacity, but today we've come to end the symbol of peace." Before 13 could use their quirk, Bakugo and Kirishima launched an impulsive attack against the mist. Their attacks passed harmlessly through, and the villain responded by enveloping the entire class in swirling darkness. "I'll scatter you across this facility," the mist villain declared, "to face my comrades and your deaths." Izuku felt the disorienting sensation of falling through emptiness before crashing into water. The flood zone. As he surfaced, he realized Azui had grabbed him with her tongue, pulling him toward a nearby boat where Mineta was already shivering. "Thanks, Tsu," he said, climbing aboard. Quick thinking. In the water below, villain figures circled menacingly. "This is bad," Mineta whimpered. "We're gonna die." "No, we're not," Izuku stated firmly, his mind already analyzing the situation. "These villains have a clear objective. They came to kill All Might. That means they've prepared something specifically to counter him." "That huge brain villain?" Azui suggested. "Probably. And they've divided us to prevent us from working together." Izuku peered over the edge at the aquatic villains. "But they made a mistake separating us like this." "How is this not a mistake?" Mineta wailed. "We're surrounded." "Because they don't know what our quirks are," Izuku explained. "They threw Tsu into the flood zone, but she's perfectly adapted for water combat with her frog quirk." Understanding dawned on Azui's face. "And you can adapt to any environment, right?" "Exactly. Now let's use that advantage." Izuku formulated a quick plan. He would create a massive distraction while Azui carried Mineta to safety. As he prepared to dive into the water, his body began adapting. Skin becoming smooth and hydrodynamic, lung capacity increasing, muscles optimizing for underwater propulsion. "Ready?" he asked his classmates. They nodded, and Izuku plunged into the water. Underwater, his adaptations accelerated, webbing forming between his fingers, eyes adjusting to see clearly through the murky depths. He swam directly toward the largest concentration of villains. As they converged on him, Izuku channeled one for all through his adapted body. With a powerful thrust of his legs, he created an underwater vortex that scattered the unprepared villains. Following up immediately, he delivered precision strikes to each disoriented opponent, careful to use only enough force to incapacitate without causing permanent injury. Within moments, the water was clear of conscious threats. Surfacing, he signaled to his classmates to proceed with the escape. As they made their way toward the central plaza, Izuku noticed something disturbing. Aizawa was engaged in combat with a massive Nomu creature, and he was losing badly. Even as they watched, the Nomu slammed Aizawa's face into the concrete with devastating force. "We need to help him," Izuku decided. "Are you crazy?" Mineta protested. "That thing is beating a pro hero. We don't need to win. Just create an opening for Mr. Aizawa to escape." Izuku's mind raced through scenarios. Sue, can you get close enough to grab him with your tongue when I give the signal? Before she could respond, a strange sensation surged through Izuku's body, a crackling energy unlike anything he'd felt before. Black tendrils of power erupted from his arm, whipping around uncontrollably. What's happening? Mineta shrieked. Izuku stared at the dark energy in shock. This wasn't one for all as he knew it. This was something new, something different. As the energy continued to surge, he heard an unfamiliar voice in his mind. Control it. Feel the energy. Don't fight it. Instinctively, Izuku's adaptive quirk responded, his body adjusting to accommodate this new power. The black tendrils stabilized, extending from his arm like living whips. Black whip, the voice whispered before fading. Testing the new ability, Izuku found he could control the tendrils with his thoughts. They responded instantly, extending and retracting at his command. Midoriya? Azui croaked, eyes wide. Is that part of your quirk? It is now, he replied, still marveling at the development. Let's use it. With newfound determination, they approached the central plaza cautiously. The hand-covered villain was monologuing about hero society, while the Nomu continued to crush Aizawa. Now, Tsu! Izuku commanded, sending black whip tendrils shooting toward the Nomu. The energy whips wrapped around the creature's arms, momentarily restraining it. In that instant, Azui's tongue shot out, wrapping around Aizawa's battered form and pulling him to safety. What? The hand villain turned, his bloodshot eyes fixing on Izuku. A student? Nomu. Kill him. The Nomu broke free of the black whip restraints with frightening ease, moving with impossible speed toward Izuku. Despite his adaptive quirk preparing for impact, Izuku knew this creature was on another level entirely. Just as the Nomu reached him, the entrance doors of the USJ burst open with tremendous force. Have no fear, boomed a familiar voice, though the tone lacked its usual cheer. For I am here. All Might stood framed in the doorway, his perpetual smile replaced by a grim expression of fury. In an instant, he crossed the facility, scooping up Aizawa and the students before depositing them safely away from the central plaza. Young Midoriya, All Might said quietly, that was reckless but brave. Now leave this to me. What followed was a battle of titans. The Nomu matched All Might blow for blow, its shock absorption quirk negating the hero's immense strength, while its regeneration healed any damage instantly. Watching from a distance, Izuku analyzed the fight with growing concern. All Might was going all out but making no progress against the bioengineered monster. Moreover, he was approaching his time limit. I need to help, Izuku decided, his body already adapting in preparation for combat. Muscles densifying, bones reinforcing, skin hardening to its maximum durability. Midoriya, wait, Azui called after him, but he was already moving. As All Might and the Nomu exchanged another devastating series of blows, Izuku circled to approach from behind. The hand villain spotted him. Another student? Kurogiri. Kill him. The mist villain materialized nearby, portals opening to slice Izuku apart, but his adaptive quirk responded instantly. His skin developed a shimmering force field-like quality that disrupted the formation of portals around him. What? Kurogiri's yellow eyes widened in surprise. Taking advantage of the villain's confusion, Izuku channeled one for all through his adapted body and delivered a devastating punch to the metal brace visible within the mist, Kurogiri's physical anchor point. The villain collapsed, temporarily incapacitated. Meanwhile, All Might had recognized a crucial weakness in the Nomu. While it could absorb shock, it couldn't absorb impacts from multiple directions simultaneously. With a heroic effort, he managed to lift the creature and suplex it into the ground. Young Midoriya, All Might called. Now, understanding the strategy instantly, Izuku launched himself at the momentarily vulnerable Nomu, channeling 50% of one for all through his adapted body. His fist connected with the exposed brain tissue just as All Might delivered a simultaneous blow from the opposite side. The combined attack overwhelmed the Nomu's shock absorption, sending it flying through the USJ dome and far into the distance. The hand villain, Shigaraki as Kurogiri called him, scratched his neck frantically. Hacks! You're using cheat codes! Before the villains could regroup, reinforcements arrived, UA teachers bursting through the entrance to secure the facility. Outnumbered and with their trump card defeated, Kurogiri enveloped Shigaraki in mist and retreated. In the aftermath, As the injured were treated and the remaining villains apprehended, Izuku sat quietly, examining his hand where Black Whip had manifested. Young Midoriya, All Might approached in his deflated form, careful to stay out of other students' sight. That new ability, was that part of your adaptive quirk? Izuku shook his head. I don't think so. Felt different. And I heard a voice, someone guiding me. All Might's eyes widened. The vestiges, he whispered. The consciousness of previous one for all users can sometimes manifest to guide a new bearer. It seems your unique quirk combination is accelerating this process. Does this mean I'll develop other abilities from previous users? Potentially, All Might confirmed. One for All isn't just my strength quirk. It's the accumulated power of 8 previous users, including their original quirks. Your adaptive nature may be helping you access these faster than any predecessor. This revelation left Izuku with much to consider. His journey was becoming more complex than he could have imagined, but also more promising. If he could master these additional quirks alongside his existing abilities, he might truly become a hero unlike any before. As emergency services arrived to transport everyone back to UA, Izuku found himself surrounded by classmates eager to hear about his role in defeating the Nomu. Even Bakugo, standing at a distance, was watching him with an unreadable expression. The USJ incident had changed everything. Villains were targeting UA directly, All Might's time was running short, and Izuku's powers were evolving in unexpected ways. The path to becoming the world's greatest hero suddenly seemed both closer and infinitely more challenging. The aftermath of the USJ attack brought temporary disruption to UA's schedule, but classes resumed with increased security measures after just 2 days. Recovery Girl had healed most injuries, though Aizawa remained heavily bandaged. During this period, Izuku spent every available moment training with All Might, focusing on controlling Black Whip, the first additional quirk to manifest from the One for All stockpile. The energy tendrils responded to emotional states, making control difficult when excited or stressed. It's like your adaptive quirk is helping you access the full potential of One for All much earlier than expected. All Might observed as Izuku successfully used Black Whip to retrieve several objects simultaneously. Previous users took years to manifest these additional abilities, if they managed it at all. I can feel the other quirks too, Izuku admitted. Like they're just beneath the surface, waiting. All Might looked troubled. Be cautious, young Midoriya. Mastering multiple quirks simultaneously could put tremendous strain on your mind and body. My adaptation quirk helps with that, Izuku assured him. It's already optimizing my neurological pathways to handle the additional input. 2 weeks after the USJ incident, Aizawa made an unexpected announcement to Class 1A. The UA Sports Festival will proceed as scheduled. The class reacted with surprise and excitement. Despite the recent villain attack, the school was moving forward with its most public event, a nationwide broadcast showcasing student abilities. This is a crucial opportunity for scouting, Aizawa explained through his bandages. Professional heroes will be watching to identify promising internship candidates. For many of you, this is your chance to be noticed. As their homeroom teacher left, the class erupted in excited discussion. This is our chance to show the pros what we can do. Kirishima pumped his fist enthusiastically. We need to make the most of this opportunity, Yaoyorozu agreed. Izuku remained thoughtful. The sports festival would put him in the national spotlight, which presented both opportunities and complications. His combined quirks were already drawing attention within UA. How would the wider hero community react? During lunch, Uraraka approached with unusual intensity. Let's do our best at the sports festival. Of course, Izuku agreed. Are you aiming for a specific internship? Uraraka's expression turned serious. I want to become a hero for money. She quickly explained her family's construction business and financial struggles, and her desire to support them. Far from being disappointed by her selfish motivation, Izuku found her dedication admirable. That's a worthy goal, he assured her. Helping your family isn't something to be ashamed of. As the sports festival approached, training intensified across campus. Izuku divided his time between regular classes, one-on-one sessions with All Might to master Black Whip, and his own specialized adaptive training. The day before the festival, Izuku encountered an unexpected obstacle in the school hallway. A crowd of students blocking the exit from the classroom. What's going on? Uraraka wondered. They're scoping out the competition, Bakugo stated bluntly, pushing forward. Move aside, extras. So these are the famous Class 1A students who survived a villain attack, came a tired voice from the crowd. A student with indigo hair and heavy-lidded eyes stepped forward. I'm from General Studies, Class 1C, Hitoshi Shinso. He regarded the Hero Course students with calm assessment. Consider this a declaration of war. Many of us in General Studies and other departments didn't make it into the Hero Course. But the sports festival is a chance for reassessment. Depending on the results, they'll consider transferring some of us up and some of you down. His gaze settled on Izuku. I've heard about you, the adaptation quirk user who finished first in the entrance exam and helped defeat the USJ villains. I wonder how adaptable you really are. Before Izuku could respond, another voice cut through the tension. Out of my way, peasants. A tall student with purple hair and a haughty expression pushed through. I am Nito Monoma of Class 1B, the superior hero class. While you attention seekers were busy getting attacked by villains, we were actually learning to be heroes. The confrontation might have escalated if not for the timely intervention of Kendo, the Class 1B representative, who chopped Monoma on the neck and dragged him away with apologies. As Class 1A finally dispersed for the day, Izuku considered these challenges thoughtfully. The sports festival wasn't just about impressing pro heroes. It was about proving their right to be in the hero course at all. The morning of the sports festival arrived with perfect weather and tremendous public excitement. Security had been tripled following the USJ incident, with pro heroes stationed throughout the massive stadium. In the waiting room, Class 1A prepared with varying levels of nervousness and enthusiasm. Todoroki, who had remained largely aloof until now, approached Izuku directly. Midoriya, he said coldly. Objectively speaking, I'm stronger than you. The room fell silent at this direct challenge from the dual quirk user. However, Todoroki continued, you have All Might's attention for some reason. I'm going to defeat you. Izuku met his heterochromatic gaze steadily. You're strong, Todoroki, but declaring war on just me seems short-sighted when everyone here is aiming for the top. I don't care about the others, Todoroki stated flatly. You're the benchmark. Before Izuku could respond further, they were called to the stadium entrance. Present Mix amplified voice greeted them as they entered the arena. Welcome to UA's Sports Festival. These first-year students have already faced real villains. But how will they fare against each other? The stadium roared with excitement as the first-year classes assembled in the central arena. Midnight, serving as referee, called Bakugo to the stage as the entrance exam's third-place finisher to deliver the student pledge. I just want to say, Bakugo stated bluntly, that I'm gonna win. This predictable declaration elicited boos from other classes and resigned sighs from 1A. Midnight quickly moved to announce the first event, an obstacle race around the stadium perimeter. As students positioned themselves at the starting gate, Izuku mentally prepared his strategy. His adaptive quirk would handle environmental challenges, while One for All would provide the raw speed needed to stay ahead. Begin, Midnight announced, and the mass of students surged forward. The first obstacle became immediately apparent. The narrow exit tunnel created a bottleneck where students pushed and shoved for position. While others struggled, Izuku channeled 40% of One for All through his legs and simply leapt over the crowd, landing well ahead of the pack. Todoroki followed suit with an ice ramp, freezing several competitors in place as he pursued Izuku. Bakugo blasted over the crowd using his explosions. The second obstacle appeared, massive robots from the entrance exam, including several of the towering zero-pointers. Todoroki froze one mid-step and slipped beneath it while Bakugo blasted directly through another's arm. Izuku took a more direct approach. As his body adapted, muscle strengthening, skin hardening to metallic density, he channeled 50% of One for All and simply punched through the central zero-pointer, creating a path that several classmates quickly utilized. Look at that destruction, folks. Present Mix commentary boomed. Class 1. Izuku Midoriya just demolished the obstacle like it was made of paper. The third obstacle was a series of platforms connected by tightropes over a deep chasm. While other students carefully balanced or used their quirks for stabilization, Izuku's body adapted to the challenge, his balance becoming perfect, movements precise as he ran across the ropes at full speed. The final obstacle was a minefield. Todoroki and Bakugo had caught up, the three of them now neck and neck at the front of the race. Your adaptations won't help if you get blown up, Deku. Bakugo taunted, using his explosions to hover above the mines. Todoroki created an ice path, carefully avoiding the buried explosives. Izuku took a different approach. Rather than avoiding the mines, he deliberately stepped on several simultaneously, using his adaptive quirk to minimize the damage while harnessing the explosive force to propel himself forward. The resulting massive explosion launched him past both rivals in a spectacular aerial maneuver that drew gasps from the crowd. As he landed, he channeled one for all through his legs for a final burst of speed, crossing the finish line well ahead of the others. First place, Izuku Midoriya, Present Mike announced as the crowd erupted in cheers. Todoroki finished second, with Bakugo a close third, both looking at Izuku with intensified determination. After a short break, the 42 students who completed the race gathered for the second event announcement. A cavalry battle, Midnight declared. Participants will form teams of 2 to 4 people. Each person has been assigned a point value based on their ranking in the obstacle race. She explained that the point values increased by 5 for each place, except for first place. First place is worth 10 million points. All eyes turned to Izuku, who suddenly found himself with a target on his back. Teams would form with one primary objective: to capture his headband and its massive point value. Despite several classmates immediately backing away, afraid to become collateral targets, Uraraka approached him confidently. "Let's team up, Deku. Are you sure?" he asked. "Everyone will be coming after us." "That's exactly why. If we can defend against everyone, that's the most impressive thing we could do." Her logic was sound. Izuku smiled gratefully. "We'll need at least one more teammate with defensive capabilities." They were joined by Tokoyami, whose Dark Shadow provided excellent defense, and surprisingly, Hatsum from the support course, who wanted to showcase her babies support items she'd invented. As the cavalry battle began, Izuku's team found themselves immediately surrounded, with nearly every other team converging on the 10 million points. "Just as expected," Izuku noted calmly. "Uraraka, get ready." Using her zero gravity on the team, Hatsum's hover boots, and Izuku's one for all enhanced jumps, they took to the air, literally rising above the competition. "They're flying!" Present Mike exclaimed. From this aerial vantage point, Izuku could survey the entire field. Todoroki had formed a powerful team with Ida, Yaoyorozu, and Kaminari, creating an impenetrable defense of ice and electricity. Bakugo led an offensive powerhouse with Kirishima, Shiro, and Ashido. Both teams were methodically collecting headbands from weaker opponents while keeping an eye on Izuku's airborne squad. "We can't stay up forever," Tokoyami warned as Dark Shadow strained to help maintain their altitude. "We don't need to," Izuku replied. "Just long enough to thin the competition." Their aerial strategy worked for half the allotted time, allowing weaker teams to eliminate each other while preserving their energy. When they finally descended, only 6 teams remained, including the powerhouses led by Todoroki and Bakugo. "Target acquired," Todoroki stated coldly as his team advanced. "Ida now." Recipro burst. Ida's engines flared with blue flame as he propelled their formation at incredible speed. Simultaneously, Bakugo separated from his team, using explosions to launch himself directly at Izuku's headband. Faced with attacks from multiple directions, Izuku's body adapted instantaneously, reflexes sharpening, perception slowing subjective time. He channeled one for all through his system, further enhancing his already superior reactions. As Todoroki reached for the headband, Izuku caught his wrist. "Sorry, but we're not losing today." In that instant, he released a controlled burst of black whip, the dark energy tendrils wrapping around several opposing headbands simultaneously. "What quirk is that?" Present Mick's voice conveyed the stadium's collective shock. "Midoriya just manifested some kind of energy whips, a combination technique," Aizawa's monotone voice explained through the commentary system. His adaptive quirk allows for surprising applications. When the final horn sounded, Izuku's team had not only defended their 10 million points, but had collected several additional headbands, finishing with an overwhelming victory. In first place, Team Midoriya. Midnight announced to thunderous applause. The 16 students advancing to the tournament round were given a lunch break before the afternoon competition. As Izuku left the stadium for some quiet reflection, he found his path blocked by Endeavor, the number 2 hero and Todoroki's father. "So you're Midoriya," the flame hero stated, his fire beard crackling with intensity. "My Shoto seems fixated on defeating you. Show me what makes you special enough to earn such attention." Before Izuku could respond, Todoroki appeared. "Stay away from him, old man. Whatever you're planning, leave Midoriya out of it." Endeavor scoffed. "You're acting like a child, Shoto. Remember why I created you." As the flame hero departed, Todoroki's usually stoic expression showed hints of genuine anger. "I apologize for my father." "You don't need to apologize for him," Izuku replied. "But created you?" Todoroki was silent for a moment before leading Izuku to a private area. There, he revealed the dark truth: how Endeavor had engineered a quirk marriage to produce a child with the perfect combination of fire and ice. How his mother had suffered until she broke, scarring Todoroki's face in a moment of quirk-induced madness. "That's why I refuse to use his fire," Todoroki concluded. "I'll reject him completely by winning with only my mother's ice." Izuku listened to this tragic history with growing concern. "I understand your feelings toward your father," he said carefully. "But your fire is your power, not his." "You don't understand," Todoroki replied coldly. "And when we face each other in the tournament, you'll lose to my ice alone." The afternoon tournament began with impressive matchups. Shinso from General Studies revealed his brainwashing quirk, nearly defeating Ojiro before the martial artist managed to break free through sheer physical training. Todoroki dominated his matches using only his right side, freezing opponents instantly. Bakugo fought with calculated ferocity, his explosions precisely controlled despite his rage. When Izuku's turn came in the quarterfinals, he found himself facing Shinso. "The famous Izuku Midoriya," Shinso called across the arena. "Yue's golden boy with the perfect adaptive quirk. Must be nice to be born lucky." Remembering Ojiro's warning not to respond to Shinso's provocations, Izuku remained silent as Midnight began the match. "Nothing to say?" Shinso pressed. "I guess those born with perfect quirks don't need to acknowledge those less fortunate. Just like the hero system, elevating the naturally gifted while ignoring those with villainous abilities." Despite knowing better, Izuku found himself responding. "That's not true. A quirk doesn't determine." His mind went blank mid-sentence, body freezing in place. From a distance, he could hear Shinso's command, "Walk out of bounds." Against his will, Izuku's body turned and began walking toward the boundary line. Inside his mind, he struggled desperately against the brainwashing effect. Suddenly, he felt it, multiple presences within the one-for-all connection. The vestiges of previous users reached out, their combined will helping him break free. As his fingers bent backward painfully, his adaptive quirk responded to the self-injury, rapidly reconfiguring his neurological pathways to resist the mental control. With a surge of will, Izuku shattered Shinso's brainwashing just before stepping out of bounds. He turned back, flexing his freed fingers. "Impossible," Shinso muttered. "No one breaks my brainwashing that easily." Izuku approached steadily. "Your quirk is amazing, Shinso. Perfect for a hero who can end conflicts without violence. But determination matters too." With precise control, Izuku channeled 30% of one for all, enough for a decisive victory without causing injury. A single palm strike to Shinso's solar plexus sent the General Studies student sliding to the boundary line, winded but unharmed. "Shinso is out of bounds. Midoriya advances," Midnight announced. As Izuku helped Shinso to his feet, the brainwashing user looked bitter. "Easy for someone with a perfect quirk to talk about determination. My quirk manifested when I was 10, after years of being diagnosed quirkless," Izuku revealed quietly. "I know what it's like to be looked down on for something beyond your control. Keep pushing forward, Shinso. Yue would be lucky to have you in the hero course." Shinso's eyes widened slightly before he nodded and walked away. The semifinals pitted Izuku against Tokoyami, whose dark shadow proved formidable, but ultimately vulnerable to the light generated by Izuku's high-speed movements. With careful application of Black Whip and one for all, Izuku secured another victory. The other semifinal match between Todoroki and Bakugo became an elemental clash that left half the stadium frozen and the other half scorched. Todoroki prevailed, but only by the narrowest margin, and still using only his ice. The stage was set for the final: Izuku Midoriya versus Shoto Todoroki. As they faced each other across the concrete arena, Todoroki opened with an enormous ice blast, far larger than anything he'd used in previous matches. Izuku's body adapted instantly, developing ice resistance while he channeled one for all to shatter the frozen onslaught with a powerful punch. "You'll need more than that, Todoroki," Izuku called. "You can't win with half your power." "Don't tell me what I can do," Todoroki responded coldly, sending another wave of ice. Izuku demolished it again, this time advancing through the frozen debris. You're already slowing down. Your body can't handle the cold without your fire to balance it. Indeed, frost had begun forming on Todoroki's right side, the drawback of overusing his ice without thermal regulation. Shut up! Todoroki created an ice wall between them, but Izuku simply punched through it. You're fighting with a handicap out of spite, Izuku pressed, closing the distance. Is that what a hero does? Compromises people's safety for personal vendettas. Todoroki's eyes widened in anger. You know nothing about my situation. I know your father is terrible, Izuku acknowledged. But this isn't about him. It's about you. That fire is your quirk, not his. As Izuku landed a solid blow that sent Todoroki skidding backward, he continued his verbal offensive. In a real fight, holding back like this could cost lives. Is rejecting your father worth that? Something broke in Todoroki's expression. Conflict, realization, and finally resolution. You talk too much, Midoriya. Fire erupted from his left side, melting the accumulated ice and bathing half the stadium in crimson light. Fine. You want my full power? You've got it. What followed was a spectacle that would be replayed on hero highlight reels for years. Todoroki unleashed simultaneous fire and ice attacks of unprecedented scale, while Izuku's body continuously adapted, developing resistances to extreme temperatures while channeling increasingly higher percentages of one for all. The clash of elements and adaptive power created shockwaves that tested the stadium's reinforced structure. Cementos and Midnight prepared to intervene if the battle became too destructive. In the climactic moment, Todoroki created his most powerful combined attack, a tornado of fire and ice spiraling toward Izuku. Instead of dodging, Izuku charged directly into the elemental maelstrom, his body adapting in real time to the conflicting extreme temperatures. As he emerged through the other side, his skin glowing with heat and frosted with ice simultaneously, Izuku channeled 60% of one for all, the highest percentage he'd ever attempted, and struck with perfect precision. The impact sent Todoroki flying from the arena, landing outside the boundary to stunned silence followed by deafening cheers. Todoroki is out of bounds. The winner is Izuku Midoriya, Midnight announced. As medical robots approached with stretchers, Izuku walked to where Todoroki was sitting up, looking at his left hand where flames still flickered. That was a real fight, Izuku said, offering his hand. Thank you. Todoroki accepted the help, rising to his feet. You were right. Rejecting half of myself was never the answer. The award ceremony celebrated Izuku's championship, with Todoroki and Bakugo sharing second place. All Might presented the medals, whispering congratulations to his successor as he placed the gold medal around Izuku's neck. You've exceeded my expectations, young Midoriya, but greater challenges await. Those words proved prophetic. The sports festival had showcased Izuku's abilities to the entire nation, including those who might see him as a threat rather than a promise. The week following the sports festival brought a flood of internship offers for Class 1A. Unsurprisingly, Izuku received the most, over 3,000 agencies requesting the adaptive champion who had dominated the competition. These arrived for you? Aizawa stated flatly, dropping a massive stack of offers on Izuku's desk. Choose wisely. This internship will shape your professional development. Reviewing the offers that evening, Izuku noticed most came from combat-specialized agencies attracted by his power. But one stood out, an offer from Gran Torino, a retired hero Izuku had never heard of, with a personal note. I trained Toshinori. Now I'll train his successor. When Izuku asked All Might about this mysterious mentor, the symbol of peace actually paled. Gran Torino. He was my homeroom teacher at UA, and my personal instructor after I inherited One for All. He's small, old, and absolutely terrifying. All Might's uncharacteristic fear was enough to convince Izuku this was the right choice. If Gran Torino had helped shape All Might, he could surely help Izuku master the growing complexities of One for All and its emerging additional quirks. 2 days later, Izuku found himself standing before a dilapidated apartment building in an unfashionable district of Tokyo. Double-checking the address, he hesitantly knocked on the door. Come in, called a quavering voice. Inside, Izuku found what appeared to be a crime scene, an elderly man lying motionless in a puddle of red liquid. He rushed forward in alarm, only to have the corpse suddenly spring up. Gotcha! It's just sausage. Gran Torino cackled at his prank before examining Izuku with keen eyes that belied his apparent senility. So you're All Might's chosen successor? Let's see what you've got, sonny. Without warning, the elderly hero bounced off the walls with incredible speed, delivering a kick that Izuku barely managed to block despite his enhanced reflexes. Too slow. Gran Torino taunted, rebounding for another strike. This time, Izuku's adaptive quirk responded, his perception accelerating, reflexes optimizing to track the high-speed movement. He caught Gran Torino's ankle mid-kick. Oh ho, not bad, the old hero admitted. That adaptation quirk of yours is impressive, but you're still using one for all inefficiently. Over the next several days, Gran Torino systematically deconstructed and rebuilt Izuku's approach to his combined quirks. Where Izuku had been using one for all as a separate power system, Gran Torino taught him to integrate it fully with his adaptive abilities, allowing one for all's energy to flow through adaptations rather than alongside them. Your body adapts perfectly to external threats, Gran Torino explained, but you're treating one for all as external too. It's part of you now. Let your adaptations work with it, not just around it. This conceptual shift produced remarkable results. By channeling one for all through specifically adapted body regions, Izuku could now utilize up to 70% of its power without strain. A tremendous improvement. Gran Torino also helped Izuku develop greater control over Black Whip, the first additional quirk to emerge from the one for all stockpile. Each previous user's quirk responds differently, the old hero explained. Black Whip belonged to the fifth user, a stern but fair hero who specialized in capture operations. Understanding the quirk's origin helps master its application. On the third day of internship, their training was interrupted by an emergency news bulletin. The hero killer, Stain, had claimed another victim in Hosu City. The notorious villain had been targeting pro-heroes across Japan, leaving them dead or permanently crippled. Hosu, Izuku murmured, remembering that Ida had chosen an internship there despite receiving few offers. His friend's brother, the hero Ingenium, had been among Stain's recent victims. Gran Torino noticed Izuku's concern. Something about Hosu bothering you, kid? My classmate Ida, his brother, was attacked by the hero killer. I'm worried he might be seeking revenge. The old hero's expression turned serious. Revenge makes for poor heroics, but we can't interfere with another agency's internship. He paused, considering. Though I was planning to patrol Hosu anyway. The old Tatooine station line runs through there. That evening, aboard the train to Hosu, Izuku messaged Ida expressing concern, but received only a formal, evasive reply. His worry deepened. Suddenly, an explosion rocked the cityscape ahead. Through the train window, Izuku spotted familiar blue flames erupting between buildings. That's the villain from the USJ, he exclaimed. The League of Villains is attacking Hosu. Gran Torino immediately sprang into action. Stay on the train, kid. I'll handle this. But as his mentor leapt through the window toward the chaos, Izuku received a location ping from Ida, a narrow alleyway far from the main battle. The message contained only 2 words: help, Stain. Without hesitation, Izuku activated one for all and leapt from the train, his body already adapting for maximum speed and maneuverability through the urban environment. Using Black Whip to swing between buildings, he reached the alleyway in minutes. The scene was nightmarish. Ida lay paralyzed on the ground alongside a wounded pro-hero. Standing over them was a gaunt figure with a tattered scarf and multiple blades, the hero killer himself. Another child playing hero? Stain's raspy voice carried in the narrow space. This society sends its young to die while false heroes seek fame and fortune. Step away from them, Izuku commanded, his body adapting for combat. Muscles tensing, skin hardening, reflexes sharpening. Stain assessed him with bloodshot eyes. You're different from this revenge seeker. I sense genuine heroic intent. Leave now and I'll spare you. I can't do that, Izuku replied, activating one for all at 50%. Heroes don't abandon those in need. Then show me your conviction. Stain charged with frightening speed, blades flashing. Izuku's adapted reflexes allowed him to evade the initial slash, but Stain's combat experience quickly became apparent. The villain maneuvered Izuku into a corner, where a blade nicked his arm. Immediately, Izuku felt his body freeze, Stain's quirk taking effect. Unlike Shinso's mental control, this was a physiological paralysis. Izuku's adaptive quirk responded instantly, his biochemistry reconfiguring to neutralize the foreign agent in his bloodstream. What? Stain's eyes widened as Izuku broke free of the paralysis within seconds. Impossible! Taking advantage of the villain's surprise, Izuku struck with Black Whip, the energy tendrils wrapping around Stain's weapons and pulling them away. Follow-up strikes with one for all-enhanced strength should have ended the fight, but Stain's fanatical determination allowed him to continue despite taking devastating blows. A true hero, indeed. Stain laughed maniacally through bloodied teeth. Fighting to save others, not for glory or vengeance. The battle continued with brutal intensity. Each time Stain's blades connected, Izuku's body adapted more quickly to the paralytic effect. Each time Izuku landed a blow, Stain somehow found the will to continue. As the fight progressed to the alley entrance, they were joined by Todoroki, who had also received Ida's distress signal. With coordinated fire and ice attacks complementing Izuku's adaptive combat, they finally managed to incapacitate the hero killer. As pro-heroes arrived to secure the scene, Stain, though defeated, delivered a chilling monologue about false heroes and the corruption of hero society that would later go viral despite media suppression attempts. His final words, directed at Izuku, were particularly unsettling. You might be worthy of living. When society crumbles under its own corruption, remember this day. In the aftermath, Izuku, Todoroki, and a chastened Ida received both praise for their successful capture of the hero killer and official reprimands for unauthorized quirk use. Only the direct intervention of the pro-hero endeavor, acknowledging his son's actions, prevented more serious consequences. As they recovered in the hospital, Ida apologized profusely for endangering his friends through his quest for vengeance. "I forgot what it meant to be a hero," he admitted, bowing formally despite his injuries. "You both reminded me when I needed it most." "That's what friends do," Izuku replied simply. "But promise me you'll talk to us next time, before things get that far." The Hosu incident changed their perspectives in different ways. For Ida, it was a humbling reminder of heroic principles. For Todoroki, it represented his first action using both quirks by choice rather than necessity. And for Izuku, it revealed that his adaptive abilities extended beyond physical threats to include biological agents like Stain's quirk, a capability with profound implications. Gran Torino, watching his intern sleep in the hospital bed, made a call to an old friend. "Nizu, that Midoriya kid. He's something special. One for All has found an extraordinary vessel this time." Returning to UA after internships, Class 1A found themselves facing another significant challenge: final exams. These would include both written tests and practical exercises designed to assess their growth as heroes in training. "The practical portion will pit you against UA faculty," Aizawa explained, his normally impassive face showing a hint of sadistic pleasure. "You'll be working in pairs against professional heroes wearing weighted handicaps." The class reacted with appropriate alarm. Fighting their teachers, actual pro-heroes, seemed daunting even with handicaps. When the team assignments were announced, Izuku found himself paired with Bakugo against All Might himself. "You've got to be kidding me," Bakugo growled. "Stuck with Deku against the #1 hero? We'll need to work together," Izuku said calmly. "Even with weights limiting his power, All Might is incredibly dangerous." Bakugo scoffed but didn't outright reject the notion, a small improvement in their volatile relationship. The written exams came first, where Izuku performed admirably though not at Yaoyorozu's perfect level. Then came the practical tests, with pairs facing different faculty members in various testing grounds. Watching the early matches remotely, Izuku analyzed each teacher's approach. Aizawa's erasure quirk proved challenging for Ishido and Kaminari, while 13th's black hole nearly captured Aoyama and Uraraka before their clever counter-strategy prevailed. Most concerning was Principal Nizu's match against Mina and Kaminari, where the super-intelligent mammal demonstrated why intellect could be the most formidable quirk of all, predicting and countering their every move while systematically destroying the entire battlefield. Finally, Izuku and Bakugo's turn arrived. They were transported to a cityscape testing ground where All Might awaited, his muscular form somewhat restrained by heavy weights at his wrists and ankles. "Young heroes," he boomed with his signature smile. "To pass, you must either capture me using this tape or have one of you escape through the exit. Come at me with everything you have." Bakugo immediately took an aggressive stance. "I don't need your help, Deku. I'm going to beat All Might myself." "That's not going to work," Izuku warned. "We need a coordinated strategy. Time starts now," All Might announced, the ground cracking beneath his feet as he launched forward with devastating speed despite his weights. Izuku's adaptive reflexes barely registered the movement before All Might's fist connected with his crossed arms. Despite his body instantly hardening to absorb the impact, the force sent him crashing through a concrete wall. "Too slow, young Midoriya," All Might taunted. "Even with your adaptation, you must anticipate attacks from stronger opponents." Bakugo attempted to blindside All Might with a massive explosion, but the hero simply weathered the blast before delivering a backhand that sent Bakugo tumbling down the street. As both students regained their footing, the reality of their situation became clear. Even handicapped, All Might operated on a different level. Individual efforts would fail. "Kaken," Izuku called, his body already adapting to better withstand All Might's tremendous strength. "We need to work together. I have a plan." "I don't need your..." Bakugo's retort was cut short as All Might appeared before him, delivering another devastating blow. "Cooperation is essential against superior opponents," All Might lectured. "Heroes must set aside personal differences in crisis." As Bakugo struggled to his feet, his expression shifted from rage to reluctant acceptance. "Fine. What's your plan, Deku?" Izuku quickly outlined his strategy. Bakugo would create a massive smokescreen with his explosions while Izuku used Black Whip to restrain All Might momentarily. Then, using specific attack patterns they'd both observed from All Might's fighting style, they would coordinate precision strikes against the weights, not to defeat him, but to slow him enough for one of them to reach the exit. The plan required perfect timing and Bakugo's willing cooperation, both seeming unlikely until the explosive student nodded grimly. "Let's show this smiling bastard what we can do." Their counterattack began with Bakugo's howitzer impact, not aimed at All Might directly, but at the ground between them, creating a massive cloud of smoke and debris. Through this cover, Izuku launched Black Whip tendrils from multiple directions. All Might easily dodged or broke the visible tendrils, but Izuku had anticipated this. The real attack came from below, Black Whip erupting from the shattered pavement to wrap around All Might's weighted ankles. "Clever," All Might acknowledged as Bakugo emerged from above, delivering his AP shot, a concentrated explosion, directly to the hero's weighted wrist. The coordinated assault continued with Izuku channeling 70% of one for all through his adapted body, striking with precision at All Might's encumbered joints, while Bakugo provided continuous cover and supplementary attacks. For a brief moment, they actually pushed the symbol of peace backward. All Might's smile widened with genuine pride before he suddenly increased his effort, shattering their formation with a controlled shockwave. Good teamwork, but not good enough. As All Might prepared to counterattack, Izuku made a split-second decision. "Kaken, the exit. Go now." Without waiting for response, Izuku unleashed Black Whip and One for All simultaneously in an all-out assault that occupied All Might's full attention. The number one hero matched him blow for blow, but Izuku wasn't trying to win, only to create an opening. Bakugo, recognizing the opportunity, redirected his explosions for maximum propulsion toward the distant exit gate. All Might noticed immediately and moved to intercept, but Izuku anticipated this, using Black Whip to briefly snare the hero's leg. That momentary delay was enough. Bakugo reached the exit gate just as All Might broke free, securing their victory. "Well done, young heroes." All Might congratulated them, genuine approval in his voice despite their unconventional success. As medical robots arrived to treat their injuries, Bakugo approached Izuku with his typical scowl, though something had shifted in his demeanor. "Don't think this means anything, Deku. I still hate your guts." "Of course," Izuku replied with a small smile. "But we make a good team when it counts." Bakugo clicked his tongue in annoyance but didn't contradict him. Later, when the exam results were announced, Class 1A had performed admirably overall. Only Ishido and Kaminari failed the practical, though they would have opportunities to improve during the upcoming summer training camp. As the first semester concluded, Izuku reflected on his progress. His control over One for All had improved dramatically, now capable of channeling 70% through his adapted body without strain. Black Whip had become a reliable secondary quirk, though he could sense other abilities still dormant within One for All's depths. Most importantly, his understanding of heroism had deepened through real challenges and consequences. All Might had praised his growth but warned that greater trials awaited. The League of Villains remained active, and intelligence suggested they were gathering allies and resources for something significant. The relative peace following Stain's capture would not last. With these thoughts in mind, Izuku prepared for UA's summer training camp, unaware that it would become a crucible that would test his developing powers and heroic resolve like nothing before. The bus ride to the summer training camp location was filled with typical Class 1A energy, Kaminari and Mineta discussing potential hot spring scenarios, Ida enforcing proper behavior with robotic hand gestures, and Bakugo threatening bodily harm to anyone disturbing his peace. Izuku sat quietly, reviewing his hero notes and quirk development journal. Over the past weeks, he had begun sensing more presences within One for All, additional quirks from previous users stirring beneath the surface. Only Black Whip had fully manifested so far, but he could feel others taking shape within his consciousness. "What you're writing, Deku?" Uraraka asked, peering over his shoulder. "Just some notes on quirk theory," he replied. "I've been researching how adaptive quirks interact with energy-based abilities." "You're always studying," she observed with admiration. "No wonder you're at the top of the class." Their conversation was interrupted as the bus stopped at a mountain overlook. Aizawa instructed everyone to exit, where they were greeted by two women in cat-themed hero costumes. "Hello, UA students. We're the Wild Wild Pussycats, a 4-person hero team specializing in mountain rescue," the blonde one introduced enthusiastically. Before further pleasantries could be exchanged, the brunette pussycat activated her quirk, and the ground beneath Class 1A shifted. Suddenly, they were sliding down the mountainside toward the forest below. "Your training camp begins now," Aizawa called after them. "The facility is at the base of the mountain. Those who don't make it before 12:30 won't get lunch." As they tumbled through the forest underbrush, Izuku quickly adapted, his skin becoming resistant to scratches, his balance optimizing for uneven terrain. Using One for All at a conservative 40%, he stabilized himself and several nearby classmates. "We need to stay together," he advised. "This forest is likely filled with obstacles." His prediction proved accurate when massive earth beasts erupted from the ground, dirt and stone constructs animated by one of the pussycat's quirks. "These are just the first challenge," the earth-manipulating pussycat called from above. "Consider it a test of your coordination." Class 1A responded with impressive teamwork. Todoroki froze several beasts while Bakugo and Kirishima shattered others. Yaoyorozu created weapons for those with less combat-oriented quirks. Izuku coordinated their efforts, his analytical mind quickly identifying optimal matchups between quirks and threats. When a particularly massive earth beast threatened to overwhelm Jairu and Kaminari, Izuku intervened directly. His body adapted for maximum impact resistance as he channeled 60% of One for All, delivering a devastating punch that reduced the creature to rubble. "Show off," Bakugo muttered, though there was less venom in his voice than usual. The forest trek continued for hours, with students battling increasingly complex earth beasts while navigating challenging terrain. By mid-afternoon, exhaustion had set in for most of the class, but Izuku's adaptive stamina kept him operating at near-peak efficiency. "We're close," he encouraged his classmates, pointing to thinning trees ahead. "I can see the facility." They arrived at the training camp building shortly before sunset, hours later than the target time. The Pussycats and Aizawa were waiting, along with a small boy who glared at them suspiciously. "Only 3 hours late," the blonde pussycat, Pixie Bob, remarked. "Better than most groups. I especially like the way you handled those earth beasts. You 5. She pointed to Izuku, Todoroki, Bakugo, Ida, and Kirishima. "I call dibs on you in 3 years." The training camp routine quickly established itself as brutally intensive. Mornings began with quirk-specific exercises designed to push their limits. For Izuku, this meant alternating between adaptation challenges, exposure to controlled environmental extremes, and One for All integration training. Aizawa had designed a special regimen where Izuku would be subjected to his erasure quirk at random intervals, forcing him to switch between his natural adaptations and One for All unpredictably. This improved his reaction time and quirk flexibility tremendously. Afternoons focused on combat applications and rescue scenarios. The Pussycats' expertise in mountain rescue operations proved invaluable, teaching students to use their quirks for extraction and civilian protection rather than just fighting. Evenings brought academic review and quirk theory lectures from Aizawa, though these often devolved into impromptu relaxation time as exhaustion claimed even the most dedicated students. On the third evening, As Class 1A prepared a curry dinner under Pixie Bob's guidance, Izuku noticed Kota, the young boy who had been watching them with evident disdain, slipping away into the forest. Concerned for his safety with darkness approaching, Izuku followed discreetly. The path led to a small cliff outcropping overlooking the valley, apparently Kota's private hideaway. "Why are you following me?" the boy demanded when Izuku approached. "It's getting dark," Izuku explained. "I wanted to make sure you were safe." Kota scoffed. "I don't need protection from some hero wannabe." Sensing deeper issues, Izuku sat nearby, giving the boy space while maintaining conversation. "You don't seem to like heroes much." "Heroes are just quirk-obsessed idiots showing off," Kota replied bitterly. "Everyone's so caught up in their stupid quirk this and quirk that. It's pathetic." Through careful questioning, Izuku learned the heartbreaking truth. Kota's parents had been the water hose hero team who died stopping a villain 3 years earlier. Their sacrifice had left their son alone and resentful of the hero society that celebrated their deaths as heroic rather than tragic. "I understand how you feel," Izuku said quietly. "When a loved one is gone, it doesn't matter if they died heroically or not. They're still gone." Kota seemed surprised by this perspective, though he maintained his defensive posture. "Whatever, just leave me alone." Respecting his wish, Izuku left food from dinner nearby and returned to camp, his thoughts troubled by the boy's situation. That night, as the students prepared for bed after an exhausting day, Aizawa made an unexpected announcement. "Tomorrow night, we'll be conducting a test of courage through the forest. Consider it practical experience for operating in disorienting environments." The prospect of a test of courage, essentially a haunted forest walk, elicited mixed reactions, from Hagikyure's excitement to Tokoyami's practical concern about controlling dark shadow in complete darkness. As Izuku settled into his futon, he felt a strange resonance within one for all, like the stirring of additional quirks responding to his recent emotional experiences. Something was developing, though it remained just below the threshold of manifestation. The next day's training proceeded normally until evening approached. As Class 1A and the recently arrived Class 1B prepared for the test of courage, those who had failed final exams, including Ishido and Kaminari, were separated for remedial lessons. "Class B will be the first to enter the forest as ghosts," Pixie Bob explained. "Class A will follow in pairs at 3-minute intervals. Your objective is to collect name tags at 7 checkpoints while enduring whatever frights await you." Teams were determined by lottery, with Izuku paired with Kota, the animal communication quirk user. As they waited their turn to enter the darkened forest, an uncomfortable premonition settled over Izuku. "Something doesn't feel right," he murmured, scanning the tree line. Before he could investigate further, a massive wall of blue flame erupted from the forest edge, accompanied by an unnatural purple mist that began spreading through the trees. "That's the villain from USJ," Izuku recognized immediately. "The League of Villains is here." Chaos erupted as Aizawa and the Pussycats moved to intercept the attack. "Students, stay together," Mandalay commanded. "This is a real villain incursion." As Pixie Bob was suddenly dragged into the forest by an unseen assailant, Izuku made a split-second decision. Kota is still at his hideout. I need to get to him. Without waiting for permission, he activated One for All and sprinted toward the cliff path, his body already adapting to filter the spreading purple gas. Behind him, he could hear Aizawa shouting commands as more villains emerged from the tree line. Racing through the forest, Izuku's enhanced senses detected a disturbing presence ahead, powerful, malevolent, and moving directly toward Kota's hideaway. Pushing his speed to the limit, he arrived just as a muscular villain with scarred eyes cornered the terrified boy. "Water hoses kid, I presume?" The villain chuckled darkly. "I've been looking for you. Muscle augmentation needs a proper workout, and finishing what I started with your parents seems poetic." "Get away from him," Izuku commanded, placing himself between Kota and the villain. The muscular villain turned with interest. "A student? Perfect timing. I was worried this would be too easy." "Kota, stay behind me," Izuku instructed, his body rapidly adapting for combat. Muscles densifying, skin hardening to metallic durability, reflexes sharpening to track the villain's movements. "Oh, your body's changing," the villain observed with morbid fascination. "Some kind of enhancement quirk? Let's test its limits." The villain's attack came with frightening speed, a punch that would have shattered concrete. Izuku crossed his arms to block, channeling 70% of one for all through his adapted defenses. The impact still sent him sliding backward, nearly to the cliff edge. His arms tingled from absorbed force, but his adaptations had prevented injury. Impressive! The villain laughed, his muscles bulging grotesquely as he activated his quirk further. I am Muscular, the man who killed Water Hose. Let's see if you're more entertaining than they were. Muscular's next attack broke through Izuku's guard, a hammering blow to his torso that would have killed a normal person instantly. Even with his adaptive durability and one-for-all reinforcement, Izuku felt ribs crack from the tremendous force. As he staggered backward, he noticed Kota trembling in terror, memories of his parents' fate clearly overwhelming him. In that moment, Izuku's resolve hardened. You killed heroes who were protecting people, Izuku stated, his voice steady despite the pain. You orphaned a child and now threaten him directly. That's not just villainous. It's cowardly. Brave words from someone about to die. Muscular charged again, muscle fibers erupting from beneath his skin in grotesque excess. This time, Izuku didn't attempt to block. Instead, his body adapted specifically to counter Muscular's quirk, his own muscle fibers reorganizing for maximum efficiency rather than bulk, tendons and ligaments reinforcing to channel force perfectly. As Muscular's massive fist descended, Izuku sidestepped with precision timing and delivered a counterstrike directly to the villain's elbow joint, channeling 80% of one for all through his perfectly adapted arm. The impact shattered Muscular's elbow, muscle fibers rupturing from the concentrated force. The villain howled in pain but recovered with disturbing speed, his quirk regenerating the damaged tissue almost instantly. That hurt. Muscular grinned maniacally. Finally, someone worth killing. What followed was a brutal exchange that pushed Izuku's adaptive capabilities to their limits. Each time Muscular landed a blow, Izuku's body adapted more specifically to counter the muscle enhancement quirk. Each time Izuku struck back, he refined the application of one for all through his evolving adaptations. Despite this progressive improvement, Muscular's raw power and combat experience were overwhelming. A particularly devastating combo sent Izuku crashing into the cliff wall, blood spilling from a cut above his eye. Is that all? Muscular taunted, approaching for the finishing blow. I expected more from UA's sports festival champion. As the villain loomed over him, Izuku's consciousness brushed against the depths of one for all, and felt something new respond. Like Black Whip before it, another quirk from a previous user was stirring, resonating with his desperate need to protect Kota. With newfound determination, Izuku rose to his feet. You want to see what I can really do? Fine. His body began changing more dramatically than before, not just hardening or strengthening, but fundamentally transforming. His skin developed a crystalline quality that refracted light, while his muscle structure visibly reconfigured into densely packed layers. What the hell? Muscular paused, genuinely surprised by the transformation. Crystallization, whispered a new voice in Izuku's mind, the fourth one for all user making contact. Acting on instinct, Izuku channeled 100% of one for all through his crystallized body for the first time. The power flowed perfectly, without the resistance or self-damage that had previously limited him. Muscular barely had time to register the change before Izuku closed the distance between them with blinding speed. The punch that followed contained the full might of one for all combined with perfect adaptive optimization, a force that sent Muscular crashing through several trees before embedding him in a boulder, unconscious and thoroughly defeated. As the crystalline structure gradually receded from his body, Izuku turned to find Kota staring at him with wide eyes. Are you hurt? Izuku asked gently, kneeling despite his own injuries. Kota shook his head, tears streaming down his face. You nearly died protecting me. That's what heroes do, Izuku replied simply. Not for glory or recognition, but because people matter. Something shifted in Kota's expression, not complete acceptance, but the beginning of understanding. The boy stepped forward hesitantly, offering Izuku his water bottle. Thank you, Izuku said, using the water to rinse blood from his face. Now we need to get you somewhere safe. The villain attack isn't over. Carrying Kota on his back, Izuku made his way carefully through the forest toward the main facility. As they traveled, he received a telepathic message from Mandalay, the pussycat with mental communication abilities. All students are authorized to use quirks in self-defense, The villains are targeting someone named Kaken. Retreat to the facility immediately. They're after Bakugo? Izuku muttered in surprise. Why? After delivering Koda to Mandalay and ensuring the boy's safety, Izuku made a difficult decision. Despite orders to retreat, he couldn't abandon his classmate, even one as abrasive as Bakugo. Using One for All to enhance his speed and Black Whip to navigate through the trees, Izuku moved deeper into the forest, following the sounds of combat. His body continuously adapted to the environment, developing resistance to the lingering poison gas, optimizing night vision, enhancing auditory perception to track distant battles. He arrived at a clearing to find a chaotic scene: Todoroki and Bakugo fighting against a villain with a strange measuring device, while Tokoyami's dark shadow rampaged out of control in the darkness, threatening friend and foe alike. Before Izuku could intervene, a new threat materialized. A swirling black portal similar to Kurojire's, but somehow different. From this portal emerged a figure wearing a plague doctor-like mask. Target confirmed, the masked villain stated emotionlessly, reaching for Bakugo. Kaken, Izuku shouted, launching forward with One for All and Black Whip simultaneously. His warning gave Bakugo just enough time to blast himself away from the immediate grab, but the masked villain simply opened another portal to intercept him. What followed was a desperate struggle as Izuku, Todoroki, and even the semi-controlled Dark Shadow attempted to prevent Bakugo's capture. Despite their efforts, the masked villain's warp ability proved frustratingly effective, opening portals with precision timing to counter their every move. In a final desperate attempt, Izuku extended Black Whip toward Bakugo as the explosive student was pulled into a portal. Their fingers nearly touched, but not quite. The portal closed, taking Bakugo with it. No! Izuku cried, his Black Whip dissolving as the villains retreated. The forest battle concluded with a devastating outcome. Bakugo captured, multiple students injured, and one of the pussycats, Ragdoll, missing as well. As emergency services arrived to treat the wounded, Izuku sat in silent fury, his mind racing through scenarios to rescue his rival and classmate. Despite Aizawa's strict instructions to leave Bakugo's rescue to the pros, Izuku knew he couldn't sit idle. That night, as he recovered in the hospital alongside other injured students, he made contact with Kirishima, Todoroki, Yaoyorozu, and Ida. I have a plan to save Kaken, he told them quietly, but I need your help. Ida initially objected strenuously, remembering the consequences of his own vigilante actions against Stain. We're students, not pros. We should trust the heroes to handle this. I agree with the principle, Izuku acknowledged, but I'm not suggesting we fight villains directly. My plan is for a surgical extraction only: get in, get Kaken, get out. No confrontations. He explained that Yaoyorozu could create a tracker using hair from the villain they'd captured, one of the Nomu creatures that had attacked the training camp. This would lead them to the League's hideout, where they would locate Bakugo without engaging the villains. Once we confirm his location, we contact the pros immediately, Izuku emphasized. We don't attempt the rescue ourselves. After considerable debate, even the rule-abiding Ida reluctantly agreed that this limited information-gathering mission might be justified given the urgency of Bakugo's situation. The following day, while pro-heroes gathered to plan an official rescue operation, Izuku and his small team implemented their tracking plan. Disguised in civilian clothes to avoid attention, they followed the signal to Kamino Ward, a rundown district in Yokohama. The signal leads to that bar, Yaoyorozu confirmed, checking her receiver. The League must be using it as a hideout. From a safe distance, they observed the nondescript building, confirming movement inside that suggested villain occupation. True to his word, Izuku immediately contacted the police through an anonymous tip, providing the exact location. Now we wait, he told his friends. The pros will handle it from here. But as night fell and they prepared to leave, breaking news alerts flashed across public screens throughout the district. A massive hero operation was underway in Kamino Ward, not at the bar they'd identified, but at a warehouse several blocks away. Did they ignore our tip? Kirishima wondered. Izuku's eyes narrowed thoughtfully. No. They're raiding multiple locations simultaneously. The bar must be a secondary target. His theory proved correct when, moments later, All Might himself crashed through the bar's roof in a spectacular entrance that sent shockwaves through the neighborhood. They did it! Todoroki exclaimed as they watched from several blocks away. The pros are rescuing Bakugo, but their celebration proved premature. News helicopters captured footage of chaos erupting at the warehouse raid. A massive villain with a familiar silhouette had appeared, engaged in battle with multiple top heroes. All for one, Izuku whispered, recognizing the villain from All Might's descriptions. The arch-nemesis of One for All. As they watched in horror, the situation deteriorated further. All for One created a massive portal that extracted the League members from the bar, including a restrained Bakugo, and transported them to the warehouse battleground. Kaken is still in danger, Izuku realized, his body already adapting in preparation for what he knew they must do. Despite their earlier agreement to leave the rescue to professionals, the situation had changed dramatically. With the top heroes engaged against All for One, Bakugo remained in the League's custody, now caught in the middle of a cataclysmic battle. "I'm going," Kirishima declared, hardening his arms. "I can't leave my friend there." The others exchanged glances before nodding in agreement. Even Ida, despite his earlier objections, recognized the extraordinary circumstances. "If we're doing this," Todoroki said calmly, "we need a perfect strategy. No confrontations with villains. Just extract Bakugo and retreat immediately." Izuku quickly formulated a plan that leveraged each of their quirks optimally. Using a combination of Yaoyorozu's created tools, Todoroki's ice paths, and his own black whip for mobility, they would create a momentary opening for Kirishima, Bakugo's closest friend, to reach out and pull him to safety. As they approached the chaotic battleground from behind police barricades, they witnessed a sight that would be engraved in history. All Might and All for One engaged in combat that reshaped the urban landscape with each exchange. "Focus on Bakugo," Izuku reminded his team. "The pros are handling All for One." Spotting Bakugo surrounded by League members at the periphery of the battle, they implemented their extraction plan. Yaoyorozu created a flashbang grenade that Todoroki launched with pinpoint accuracy, momentarily disorienting the villains. In that critical moment, Izuku used Black Whip to propel Kirishima high above the chaos, positioning him perfectly to call out to Bakugo. "Come on!" Kirishima shouted, extending his hardened hand. Despite his captivity, Bakugo retained his fierce independence. Recognizing his classmate's rescue attempt, he used his explosions to launch himself upward, grasping Kirishima's outstretched hand. "Took you long enough, hair for brains," Bakugo growled as they connected. Using a combination of Todoroki's ice structures and Izuku's Black Whip, the rescue team extracted themselves and Bakugo from the battlefield before the League could respond. They retreated to a safe distance, where pro heroes quickly surrounded them, equal parts relieved at Bakugo's rescue and furious at their unauthorized intervention. "We'll discuss your actions later," a stern pro hero informed them. "For now, stay behind the evacuation perimeter." From this position of relative safety, they witnessed the climactic battle between All Might and All for One reaching its zenith. The villain's grotesque form wielded multiple quirks simultaneously, while All Might fought with increasingly desperate determination. "Something's wrong," Izuku murmured, noticing how All Might's muscle form seemed to flicker between attacks. "He's reaching his limit." In a final, earth-shattering exchange, All Might delivered a devastating blow that defeated All for One, but at tremendous cost. As the dust settled, the unthinkable happened. All Might's muscular form dissolved completely, revealing his true emaciated state to the watching world. Despite this physical transformation, All Might raised his fist in victory, declaring to both the defeated villain and the watching nation, "You may have wounded me, All for One, but I am still here." The symbol had changed, but the inspiration remained. As cameras broadcast the moment globally, All Might pointed directly toward where Izuku stood among his classmates, a gesture that seemed random to most observers but carried profound meaning between mentor and successor. In the aftermath, as police secured All for One and medical teams treated the injured, Izuku and his rescue team faced formal reprimands for their unauthorized actions. However, these were tempered by recognition that their intervention had successfully extracted Bakugo without escalating the situation. Most significant was Bakugo's reaction to being rescued. Far from his typical rage at receiving help, he seemed subdued, processing the reality that his strength alone had been insufficient against organized villains. "Don't think this means I owe you anything, Deku," he muttered when they finally had a moment alone. "But thanks for not giving up." "Never," Izuku replied simply. As they returned to UA, now converted to a boarding school with enhanced security following the recent attacks. The full impact of recent events began to settle. All Might's true form had been revealed to the world, marking the effective end of his era as the symbol of peace. All for One had been captured, but at tremendous cost to Hero Society's sense of security. And for Izuku, the responsibility of One for All had never felt heavier. With Black Whip successfully manifested and crystallization emerging during the muscular fight, he could sense additional quirks stirring within, responding to his adaptive nature and accelerating their awakening. That night, alone in his dorm room, Izuku received a text message from All Might. "My office, tomorrow morning. We have much to discuss." The implications were clear. With All Might's public power diminished, the torch of One for All had been passed more completely than ever. The future of heroism now rested squarely on Izuku's adaptable shoulders. As he drifted towards sleep, the vestiges of previous One for All users appeared in his dreams more clearly than ever before. 7 distinct figures surrounding a blazing core of power. The third figure stepped forward, voice resonating with surprising clarity. "The age of All Might is ending," the vestige stated. "But your journey is just beginning, Ninth. The true power of One for All awakens within you like in no bearer before, enhanced by your natural adaptability. Prepare yourself, for the challenges ahead will test even your remarkable evolution." Izuku awakened with renewed determination. Whatever came next, whatever villains arose to fill the vacuum left by All for One's capture, he would continue to adapt, continue to grow, continue to protect. The era of All Might had ended. The era of Deku was just beginning. The morning after All Might's career-defining battle, Izuku stood outside his mentor's office door. His hand hesitated over the knob as he processed the magnitude of recent events. All Might's true form revealed to the world. All for One captured, but at tremendous cost. The symbol of peace's era effectively ended. When he finally entered, he found Toshinori Yagi looking frilier than ever, sitting behind his desk with medical patches visible beneath his loose shirt. "Young Midoriya," All Might greeted, his voice tired but resolute. "Thank you for coming. How are your injuries, All Might?" Izuku asked, taking the offered seat. "They'll heal, mostly," the former symbol of peace replied with a weak smile. "But we have more important matters to discuss. The torch has been passed more completely than I intended." For the next hour, they spoke of One for All's future and the vacuum left by All Might's diminished presence. Villain activity would inevitably increase. Society would feel more vulnerable. New threats would emerge to test the hero system. "You're progressing faster than any previous wielder," All Might explained. "Your adaptive quirk is accelerating the manifestation of abilities from previous users. Black Whip appeared first, then crystallization during your fight with Muscular. I can feel others stirring," Izuku confirmed. "And the vestiges. They're becoming clearer in my dreams." All Might nodded solemnly. "One in particular wishes to speak with you directly." As if summoned by these words, Izuku's surroundings suddenly shifted. The office dissolved into a luminous space filled with floating energy patterns. Before him stood a thin, pale man with white hair and a gentle expression. "Hello, Ninth," the figure greeted. "I am Yoichi Shigaraki, the first wielder of what you now call One for All." Izuku's eyes widened in recognition. "The brother of All for One." Yoichi nodded sadly. "The same. I've watched you, Izuku Midoriya. Your journey is unlike any previous inheritors. Your adaptive nature has accelerated One for All's evolution within you." "What does that mean?" Izuku asked. "It means you have the potential to master aspects of this power that even All Might could not access," Yoichi explained. "But with greater power comes greater responsibility. In the coming trials, remember that true strength lies not in domination, but in protection." Before Izuku could ask more questions, the vision faded, returning him to All Might's office. "You saw him, didn't you?" All Might observed, noting Izuku's expression. "The first," Izuku nodded. "He said my adaptation is accelerating One for All's evolution." "Then we must accelerate your training as well," All Might declared, "starting with the Provisional Hero License exam next month. Without a license, you cannot legally use your quirk to help others, something society desperately needs now." In the weeks that followed, UA implemented dramatic security changes. Students moved into newly constructed dormitories on campus. Security systems were enhanced. The faculty increased patrols and monitoring. Amidst these changes, Class 1A focused intensely on preparing for the provisional license exam. For Izuku, this meant not only refining his combat applications but also developing rescue techniques that utilized his adaptive abilities. Rescue operations require different adaptations than combat, Aizawa explained during specialized training. You need to optimize for civilian protection, structural support, and environmental hazard neutralization. Izuku threw himself into this training with characteristic determination. His body learned to adapt to smoke inhalation, extreme heat, toxic exposure, and crushing pressure, all hazards commonly encountered during rescue operations. When the day of the exam arrived, Class 1A traveled to the National Dagoba Arena where over 1,500 examinees from hero schools nationwide had gathered to compete for a limited number of provisional licenses. Remember, Aizawa told them before departing, this exam has a ruthlessly low pass rate. Work together when necessary, but ultimately, each of you must prove your individual worth as heroes. The first phase of the exam was revealed to be a battle royale-style competition. Each participant received 3 targets to attach to their body. The objective: protect your own targets while eliminating other competitors by hitting their targets with balls infused with their quirk. The first 100 examinees to eliminate 2 opponents will advance, the examiner announced. Begin! Chaos erupted immediately. Schools that had previously competed against UA in sports festivals targeted Class 1A specifically, recognizing them as formidable threats to eliminate early. They're coming for us first, Kirishima shouted as dozens of competitors converged on their position. Scatter strategically, Izuku commanded. Groups of 3 defensive formations. As his classmates dispersed according to his instructions, Izuku found himself targeted by multiple opponents simultaneously. Rather than engage directly, he activated One for All at 45% and leapt high above the arena. From this aerial vantage point, he analyzed the battlefield, noting terrain features, competitor distributions, and tactical opportunities. His enhanced perception, further optimized by his adaptive quirk, allowed him to process this information with unprecedented speed. Landing atop a rocky outcropping, he deployed Black Whip to create a defensive perimeter around himself. When several examinees attempted to breach this barrier, Izuku's body adapted instantly, optimizing his reaction time, visual processing, and muscular coordination specifically for precision targeting. With calculated efficiency, he eliminated these opponents using the minimum necessary force, a demonstration of control that impressed watching proctors. As the first phase progressed, Izuku's strategy evolved beyond mere survival. He began actively protecting struggling UA students, using his adaptations to neutralize threats before they could eliminate his classmates. When a powerful wind user named Inesa Yurashi from Shiketsu High targeted Uraraka, Izuku's body adapted to the airborne assault, developing resistance to wind shear and optimizing his balance for turbulent conditions. "Uraraka now," he called, using Black Whip to stabilize her position. Understanding immediately, Uraraka touched the approaching Inesa, activating her zero-gravity quirk. The momentary weightlessness disrupted his wind control, creating the opening Izuku needed to tag one of his targets. Impressive teamwork, Inesa acknowledged with surprising enthusiasm despite his partial elimination. UA students truly understand heroic cooperation. By the time the first phase concluded, all of Class 1A had advanced, largely due to Izuku's strategic coordination and protective interventions. The second phase presented an entirely different challenge: a large-scale disaster simulation with professional actors playing injured civilians. The objective was to rescue as many people as possible while demonstrating proper hero protocols. "This phase tests your rescue capabilities," the head examiner explained. "Remember that heroism isn't just about fighting villains. It's about saving lives." As artificial rubble, fires, and unstable structures filled the test area, Izuku's body began adapting to multiple environmental hazards simultaneously. His skin becoming heat-resistant, his lungs filtering airborne particulates, his strength optimizing for lifting debris without causing structural collapse. But his most significant adaptation came unexpectedly. As he approached the first injured civilian, something new awakened within him, an empathic resonance that allowed his adaptive quirk to extend beyond physical threats to emotional states. He could literally feel the actor's distress as his body adapted to understand it. This newfound empathic adaptation provided instant insight into the psychological needs of those he rescued, knowledge that proved as valuable as his physical capabilities. "You're going to be okay," he assured a trapped civilian, his voice naturally modulating to the perfect tone for alleviating their specific anxieties. "I'm here to help you." The transformation was remarkable. Rescue professionals observing the exam noted how Izuku's approach seemed to instantly calm panic, reduce shock symptoms, and establish trust. Psychological interventions that typically required extensive training. As the simulation progressed, a new challenge emerged. The pro-hero gang Orca arrived, playing the role of a villain attacking the disaster area. A test of students' ability to balance rescue operations with combat when necessary. Prioritize civilian evacuation. Izuku instructed nearby examinees, including some from rival schools. "I'll handle the villain intervention." Without waiting for agreement, he moved to intercept gang Orca, his body already adapting to aquatic combat, optimizing for pressure resistance, friction reduction, and countering echolocation abilities. Interesting, gang Orca observed as Izuku approached. "Most students avoid direct confrontation with me. A hero must protect civilians by addressing threats directly," Izuku replied, channeling 65% of one for all through his perfectly adapted form. What followed was a display of combat adaptation that astonished observers. Each time gang Orca employed his sonic attacks, Izuku's auditory system reconfigured to neutralize the effect. When powerful water jets targeted him, his skin developed hydrophobic properties that reduced impact. Most impressively, rather than attempting to defeat gang Orca outright, Izuku focused on containment and redirection, keeping the villain occupied while other examinees completed rescue operations. "Your priority isn't victory," Izuku explained as they clashed. "It's minimizing civilian casualties." Gang Orca's expression registered genuine surprise at this insight, a perspective many pro-heroes still struggle to maintain in crisis. When the final horn sounded, ending the examination, Izuku had not defeated gang Orca, but he had prevented him from interfering with a single rescue operation, while personally extracting 17 civilians from dangerous situations. The results were announced after brief deliberation. 89 examinees passed, including most of Class 1A. Izuku not only received his provisional license but was singled out for special commendation. Midoriya's performance demonstrated exceptional crisis management, combat restraint, and civilian protection priorities, the head examiner noted. His rescue techniques established new benchmarks for this examination. As they prepared to return to UA, Izuku was approached by Inasa Yurashi, whose initial animosity toward UA students had apparently transformed into respect. "Midoriya," the wind user proclaimed with characteristic intensity, "your understanding of true heroism is passionate and profound. I misjudged UA students." "We're all learning," Izuku replied with a smile. "Different schools, same goal. Becoming heroes worth trusting." This exchange was observed by an unusual figure, a small, elderly man with a cloth mask and peculiar goggles who stood among the pro-hero observers. "So that's All Might's successor," Sir Night Eye murmured to himself. "Interesting." Returning to UA with their provisional licenses, Class 1A found little time to celebrate. News reports indicated increasing villain activity nationwide, the predicted consequence of All Might's retirement. More concerning were rumors of an emerging Yakuza organization called Shai Hasaikai, led by a man known as Overhaul, who had been contacting the scattered remains of the League of Villains. Izuku's opportunity to investigate came unexpectedly when he received an invitation to intern with Sir Nightai's hero agency, All Might's former sidekick and a legendary hero known for his intelligence and foresight. "Sir Night Eye specifically requested you," Aizawa informed him. "This is unusual. He rarely takes interest in first-year students." The internship began formally enough, with Sir Night Eye subjecting Izuku to a peculiar test, making him laugh within 3 minutes or be rejected. Using insights from his empathic adaptation, Izuku identified precisely what would appeal to Nightai's highly specific humor preferences, securing his position. "Acceptable," the stoic hero acknowledged, "though your methods were unexpectedly perceptive." At the agency, Izuku met Mirio Togata, a third-year UA student widely considered the closest to claiming the title of #1 hero among the younger generation. His quirk, permeation, allowed him to phase through solid matter. "You must be the famous first year I've heard so much about," Mirio greeted enthusiastically. "Sir speaks highly of your potential." Their first joint patrol revealed the true purpose behind Izuku's recruitment. Sir Naitai's agency had been investigating the Shai Hasaikai for months, gathering evidence of their involvement in developing quirk-destroying weapons. We believe they're using a young girl as the source, Night-Eye explained during the mission briefing. Her quirk apparently allows for biological rewinding or deconstruction, the key component in bullets that can permanently erase quirks. The information struck Izuku deeply. A child exploited for biological harvesting. Weapons that could permanently destroy quirks. The implications were horrifying. "Have you located her?" he asked, his adaptive empathy already resonating with the unknown girl's presumed suffering. "We've narrowed down the location to their main compound," Night-Eye replied. "But we need more evidence before we can secure a raid warrant." That evidence came sooner than expected. During a routine patrol, Izuku and Mirio encountered a small girl with a horn on her forehead, running terrified through an alleyway. Moments later, a masked man appeared, Overhaul himself, the leader of Shai Hasaikai. "Eri," the man called with chilling calm. "Come back now." Izuku's empathic adaptation activated instantly upon seeing the girl's face. The terror, trauma, and desperation flooded his consciousness. Not as abstract understanding, but as direct, visceral experience. His body literally adapted to comprehend her suffering. "She's terrified of you," Izuku stated, stepping between Overhaul and the child. "What have you done to her?" Overhaul's eyes narrowed behind his plague doctor mask. "This is a family matter. The child is my daughter and she's unwell. Please don't interfere." Every instinct in Izuku screamed to act immediately, to protect Eri from returning to her abuser. But Naitai's warning echoed in his mind. Without sufficient evidence and proper warrants, direct intervention could jeopardize the entire operation. Mirio, recognizing the same dilemma, placed a steadying hand on Izuku's shoulder. "We'll need to verify your claims, sir. Perhaps at the hospital." "That won't be necessary," Overhaul interrupted. "Eri, tell these heroes the truth. You were just playing a game, weren't you?" The girl's response shattered Izuku's heart. With trembling lips and dead eyes, she nodded and walked back to Overhaul's side. "See? A misunderstanding," Overhaul concluded, taking Eri's hand. "Good day, heroes." As they walked away, Eri looked back once. A gaze that contained such profound hopelessness that Izuku felt physically ill through his empathic connection. "We should have taken her," he whispered once they were alone. "She's being abused, tortured. I could feel it." "I know," Mirio replied, his usual cheerfulness absent. "But Sir has a plan. If we had acted impulsively, Overhaul might have disappeared with her forever. This way, we know where she is, and we're close to having everything we need for a full raid." The raid was approved 3 days later, after surveillance confirmed suspicious deliveries and captured incriminating conversations. A joint operation was organized between Sir Naitai's agency, the police, and several additional hero teams, including Ryukyu's agency with Uraraka and Tsuyu participating. Before deployment, Izuku experienced another vestige connection, this time with a stern-faced figure who identified himself only as the second one for all user. "You face an enemy who destroys without remorse," the vestige stated bluntly. "Sometimes, protecting the innocent requires decisive action against those who would harm them. Hesitation can be fatal." "Are you saying I should abandon mercy?" Izuku questioned. "I'm saying true heroism sometimes requires tactical ruthlessness in service of compassion," the second replied. "The girl suffers while her tormentor lives freely. Remember that when the moment comes." The raid began at dawn with precise coordination. Police and heroes breached the Shai Hasaikai compound simultaneously from multiple entry points. Izuku, paired with Mirio due to their previous encounter with Eri, formed part of the core infiltration team with Sir Night-Eye. Initially, resistance was minimal, low-level Yakuza members quickly overwhelmed by superior numbers. But as they penetrated deeper into the compound, they encountered increasingly dangerous opponents. The first major obstacle came in the form of Tengai and Rappa, a defensive barrier user and a martial arts powerhouse working in devastating tandem. While other heroes engaged them directly, Izuku's analytical mind identified a more efficient approach. "Sir Mirio, continue toward Eri," he instructed. "I'll handle these two and catch up." Sir Night-Eye hesitated briefly before nodding. "Don't take unnecessary risks. Your priority remains the girl's rescue." As his teammates advanced, Izuku faced the villain duo alone. His body adapted instantly to their combined assault, developing impact resistance against Rappa's devastating punches while simultaneously optimizing his perceptual processing to identify microscopic gaps in Tengai's barriers. Another weakling hero, Rappa taunted, launching a barrage of punches that would shatter concrete. Die quickly. Instead of attempting to match Rappa's raw power, Izuku's adaptive quirk developed a perfect countering rhythm, minimal movements that redirected force rather than blocking it directly. Each adaptation became more specified to the unique fighting style he faced. What the hell? Rappa growled as his attacks consistently failed to connect properly. How are you doing that? Within minutes, Izuku had identified the precise timing of Tengai's barrier generation and the exact force threshold required to breach it. Channeling 75% of one for all through his perfectly adapted form, he executed a combination that first disrupted the barrier with precisely calibrated black whip tendrils, then delivered a crystallization-enhanced strike to Rappa's solar plexus. Both villains dropped simultaneously, Rappa unconscious from the perfectly placed blow, Tengai from the backlash of his shattered barrier. Without pausing to rest, Izuku continued deeper into the compound, following the path taken by Night Eye and Mirio. His adaptive senses tracked their progress through subtle environmental cues, displaced air currents, microscopic damage patterns on surfaces, residual body heat signatures. He caught up to them just as they confronted another powerful opponent, Chronostasis, Overhaul's right-hand man, whose quirk could slow a person's temporal experience by touching them with his minute hand-shaped hair. The battle was already underway, with Sir Night Eye using his foresight quirk to predict and evade Chronostasis's attacks while Mirio phased through barriers to create openings. Izuku joined seamlessly, his body adapting to the temporal distortion field surrounding Chronostasis. His nervous system reconfigured to process information at accelerated rates, counteracting the time-slowing effect. Impossible, Chronostasis muttered as Izuku moved normally through his quirk's influence. No one adapts to temporal manipulation. First time for everything, Izuku replied, using Black Whip to immobilize the villain's specialized hair before it could touch anyone. With Chronostasis neutralized, they pressed forward to the final chamber where Overhaul, and presumably Eri, awaited. But when they breached the door, they found a nightmarish scene. Overhaul stood in the center of a laboratory filled with medical equipment, vials of red liquid, and completed quirk-destroying bullets. Beside him, Eri was strapped to an examination table, her arms scarred from repeated extractions. "You're too late," Overhaul stated coldly. "The product is complete, and distribution has begun. But since you've come all this way," he removed his glove and touched the floor. Instantly, the entire chamber began deconstructing and reconstructing, Overhaul's quirk allowing him to disassemble and reassemble matter at will. Sir Night Eye activated his foresight, briefly making eye contact with Overhaul to see the future of their confrontation. Whatever he witnessed made his expression darken. "Togata Midoriya, focus on extracting the girl," he commanded. "I'll handle Overhaul." "But sir," Mirio began. "That's an order," Night Eye interrupted. "One I expect you to follow." As Night Eye engaged Overhaul directly, Izuku and Mirio maneuvered toward Eri. Mirio used his permeation to phase through the constantly shifting terrain while Izuku adapted to the restructuring environment, his body developing perfect balance for unstable surfaces and spatial awareness for predicting morphological changes. They had nearly reached Eri when catastrophe struck. Overhaul, recognizing the threat to his research subject, created a massive spike formation that impaled Sir Night Eye through the torso. "Sir!" Mirio cried out in horror. Night Eye's prediction had come true, his own death at Overhaul's hands. But even mortally wounded, the hero maintained his composure. "The future can be changed," he gasped. "Prove me wrong, Midoriya." These words triggered something profound within Izuku, a new adaptive response that extended beyond physical threats to temporal reality itself. His connection to One for All deepened as his adaptive quirk responded to the concept of predetermined fate. As Overhaul prepared to finish Night Eye, Mirio made a heroic sacrifice. Using his permeation, he phased through the restructuring floor to reach Eri, managing to free her from the restraints. But in doing so, he exposed himself to a direct hit from one of Overhaul's quirk-destroying bullets. "Lemillion!" Izuku shouted as Mirio's body convulsed, his quirk violently erased from his system. Even quirkless, Mirio continued fighting, landing several powerful blows on Overhaul through sheer combat training and indomitable will. But without permeation, he couldn't avoid the villain's counterattack, which sent him crashing against a wall. "How disappointing," Overhaul remarked, turning his attention to Eri. "Now I'll have to discipline you again, Eri." Something snapped within Izuku at these words. His empathic adaptation had connected deeply with Eri's trauma, and the second user's advice resonated in his mind. Sometimes protection required decisive action. His body transformed more completely than ever before. A perfect adaptive counter to Overhaul's quirk developing as crystalline structures merged with One for All's energy through his entire system. The glowing matrix spread across his skin, creating an armor that could resist deconstruction while channeling unprecedented power. "You won't touch her again," Izuku stated with absolute certainty. Overhaul's eyes widened in alarm. "What are you?" Rather than answering, Izuku moved One for All at 100%, flowing effortlessly through his perfectly adapted form. The speed and power were beyond anything he'd previously achieved, closing the distance to Overhaul before the villain could react. The first strike shattered Overhaul's mask and the jaw beneath it. The second neutralized his attempt to touch the ground for another reconstruction. The third launched him through the laboratory wall into an adjacent chamber. Izuku followed relentlessly, his adaptive body continuously reconfiguring to counter each of Overhaul's desperate tactics. When the villain managed to touch broken debris and create monstrous fusion forms, Izuku's adaptations evolved accordingly, developing specialized counters to each mutation. "Stay away," Overhaul screamed, his composed demeanor crumbling as nothing in his arsenal proved effective. In a final desperate move, Overhaul fused with chronostasis, creating a grotesque combined form with multiple arms and enhanced abilities. But even this transformation proved futile against Izuku's perfect adaptive counter. With Black Whip restraining the fusion's extra limbs and crystallization protecting against deconstruction, Izuku delivered the finishing blow, a precisely calibrated strike that separated Overhaul from his fusion components without causing lethal damage. As the villain collapsed unconscious, Izuku turned his attention to more urgent matters: the critically injured Sir Night-Eye and the quirk-erased Mirio. Kneeling beside Night-Eye, whose life was fading rapidly from his impalement wound, Izuku felt his adaptive quirk responding to yet another seemingly impossible challenge. His hands began glowing with a combination of One for All's energy and a new manifestation, a temporal adaptation that somehow interacted with biological processes. "What are you doing?" the fading hero whispered. "Changing the future," Izuku replied, placing his glowing hands on Night-Eye's wound. The effect was immediate and astonishing. Night-Eye's injured tissues began regenerating, cellular degradation reversing, as Izuku's adaptive quirk temporarily manipulated local temporal flow around the wound. It wasn't healing in the conventional sense. It was literally rewinding the damage out of existence. When he finished, Night-Eye's fatal wound had been reduced to a manageable injury, still serious but no longer life-threatening. "Impossible," Night-Eye murmured, touching his partially healed torso. "My foresight has never been wrong." "Maybe it wasn't," Izuku suggested. "Maybe you saw exactly what needed to be seen to change the outcome." Next, he turned to Mirio, who was cradling the traumatized Eri while trying to hide his devastation at losing his quirk. "It's okay," Mirio assured with forced cheerfulness. "I don't regret it. Saving her was worth any price." Izuku knelt beside them, his empathic adaptation connecting simultaneously with Mirio's loss and Eri's trauma. "Eri," he said gently, "your quirk doesn't just destroy, it rewinds. With proper control, you could potentially restore what was taken." The girl looked up with tearful eyes. "I only hurt people. That's what Overhaul always said." "He lied," Izuku assured her. "Your power isn't evil, it was just misused by an evil person. With training, you could help people." As medical teams secured the compound and treated the injured, Izuku made a promise, both to the quirkless Mirio and the traumatized Eri. He would help them both recover what had been taken from them, whether it was a quirk or a childhood. In the weeks that followed the Shai Hasaikai raid, Izuku divided his time between regular UA activities and special training sessions with Eri, who had been placed under UA's protection. Working closely with Recovery Girl and Aizawa, he helped the young girl develop rudimentary control over her rewind quirk. "Your power responds to your emotional state," he explained during one session, his empathic adaptation allowing him to perceive exactly how her quirk activated. "When you're afraid, it activates randomly. When you feel safe, you can begin directing it." Eri's progress was slow but steady. After a month of careful training, she managed her first controlled rewind, restoring a wilted flower to full bloom. "I did it!" she exclaimed with genuine joy, perhaps the first she'd experienced in years. "I helped something instead of hurting it." The breakthrough with Eri coincided with another development in Izuku's hero education. Several students who had failed the provisional license exam, including Bakugo and Todoroki, were required to take remedial courses alongside students from other schools. As part of their training, they needed experienced license holders to assist with practical exercises. Aizawa selected Izuku for this role, paired with the wind user Inesa from Shiketsu High. Their task: help the remedial students conduct a safety drill at a local elementary school, demonstrating appropriate quirk usage while entertaining and educating young children. "This is an important aspect of heroism often overlooked," Aizawa explained. "Public perception and civilian comfort with heroes begins in childhood." The assignment proved surprisingly challenging. Bakugo's aggressive demeanor frightened the children, while Todoroki's reserved nature failed to engage them. Meanwhile, the Shiketsu students struggled with appropriately scaling their quirks for a school environment. Recognizing the problem, Izuku's adaptive quirk responded in an unexpected way, developing enhanced communication abilities specifically calibrated for different age groups. He could literally adapt his language, gestures, and explanatory techniques to perfectly match children's cognitive development stages. "Watch closely," he instructed the remedial students. "Heroes must adapt their approach based on their audience." He demonstrated by gathering the nervous children and engaging them with age-appropriate explanations of quirk safety. His adapted communication style immediately captured their attention, transforming fear into fascination. Inesa, with his naturally exuberant personality, quickly adapted this approach into his own style, using controlled wind demonstrations that delighted rather than intimidated. "Magnificent," Inesa proclaimed. "Heroism is about making people feel safe and inspired." Even Bakugo grudgingly modified his approach after observing Izuku's success, transforming his explosions into harmless but impressive light shows that the children found thrilling rather than frightening. By day's end, what had begun as a remedial punishment had become a valuable learning experience for all involved, demonstrating that heroism extended beyond combat to include education, inspiration, and community connection. The elementary school principal was so impressed that she requested regular hero safety demonstrations, creating an ongoing program that would influence hero education nationwide. Returning to UA, Izuku found the campus preparing for another traditional event, the school festival. Unlike the sports festival's competitive nature, this was a cultural celebration meant to relieve stress and showcase non-combat applications of quirks. After recent villain attacks, the students need this, Principal Nizu explained to concerned security staff. "Mental health is as important as physical safety." Class 1A decided to perform a musical and dance showcase, with each student contributing based on their talents. Izuku, initially uncertain of his role, discovered yet another adaptive application. His body could naturally optimize for rhythmic movement and coordination, making him an unexpectedly skilled dancer. During festival preparations, Izuku encountered a peculiar duo investigating the campus perimeter: a well-dressed young man with slicked-back hair and a small girl recording video. His enhanced senses and adaptive intuition immediately identified something suspicious about their behavior. Following discreetly, he overheard their conversation, revealing the man as Gentle Criminal, a flamboyant villain who recorded his crimes for internet fame. His plan: infiltrate UA's festival for his most spectacular video yet. Rather than immediately apprehending them, Izuku's empathic adaptation activated, allowing him to understand Gentle's underlying motivations. This wasn't a malicious villain, but a failed hero candidate seeking recognition through increasingly desperate means. "You don't have to do this," Izuku said, revealing his presence. "Your talents deserve better than internet infamy." Startled, Gentle immediately activated his elasticity quirk, bending space itself to create rubber-like barriers. "A student? How unfortunate. I didn't wish to harm anyone." "Neither do I," Izuku replied, his body adapting to the spatial distortions, developing perfect equilibrium for navigating elasticized terrain. What followed wasn't a traditional battle, but something more complex. A physical dialogue where Izuku systematically demonstrated the true potential of Gentle's quirk beyond petty crime. "Your elasticity could revolutionize rescue operations," Izuku explained as they exchanged techniques. "Creating safe zones in collapsing buildings, cushioning falls, containing hazardous materials. With each exchange, he showed rather than told, using his adaptive movements to highlight applications Gentle had never considered. The small girl, La Brava, watched in confusion as what should have been combat evolved into something resembling a quirk consultation. "What are you doing, Gentle?" she called. "We need to complete the mission." But Gentle's expression had changed, revelation replacing determination. "He's right, La Brava. We've been thinking too small." By conversation's end, no arrest was necessary. Gentle voluntarily abandoned his infiltration plan, instead accepting Izuku's offer to connect him with legitimate quirk research programs that could utilize his unique abilities. "Perhaps fame can wait," Gentle conceded. "If genuine contribution is possible." This resolution allowed the school festival to proceed without incident, a brief respite of joy and creativity amid increasingly troubling times. Eri attended as Izuku's special guest, experiencing her first festival with wide-eyed wonder. During Class 1A's performance, something remarkable happened. As Izuku danced, channeling One for All through his perfectly adapted movements, Eri smiled genuinely, perhaps her first true smile since being rescued. This emotional breakthrough accelerated her quirk control progress dramatically in subsequent training sessions. While UA celebrated internally, the professional hero world faced mounting challenges. With All Might's retirement, the burden of symbolic leadership fell to Endeavor, now officially the #1 hero despite public ambivalence about his harsh methods and personality. Endeavor's first major test came sooner than anyone anticipated. During a routine press conference announcing his new agency structure, a monstrous creature attacked, a high-end Nomu far more advanced than those from the USJ incident, capable of speech, strategic thinking, and wielding multiple powerful quirks. Hawks, the #2 hero, responded immediately, but even his incredible speed proved insufficient against the creature's regenerative abilities and raw power. Endeavor joined the battle, pushing his Hellflame quirk to unprecedented limits, but still found himself overwhelmed. Watching the live broadcast from UA, Izuku made an immediate decision. With his provisional license legitimizing hero work, he activated One for All and headed toward the battle site. "Midoriya," Aizawa called after him. "This isn't your fight." "With respect, sir," Izuku replied without slowing. "If that Nomu defeats the top 2 heroes, everyone's safety is compromised." Arriving at the devastated cityscape where Endeavor and Hawks fought a losing battle against the high-end Nomu, Izuku assessed the situation with his enhanced perception. The creature possessed at least 5 distinct quirks: regeneration, strength augmentation, transformative appendages, impact redirection, and something resembling shock absorption. "Another hero?" The Nomu spoke with disturbing clarity. "Insufficient." Endeavor, bleeding from multiple wounds, glared at Izuku. "Get back, student. This is beyond your..." Before he could finish, the high-end launched another devastating attack. Izuku's body adapted instantly, developing perfect counters to each of the creature's observed quirks. His skin became heat-resistant to withstand proximity to Endeavor's flames while simultaneously reconfiguring to neutralize the Nomu's impact redirection. "Its regeneration has a limit," Izuku called to the professional heroes as he intercepted the Nomu's strike. "It prioritizes cellular resources, central nervous system first, then vital organs, then locomotion systems." Hawks raised an eyebrow, impressed by this immediate tactical assessment. "So we overwhelm it with simultaneous damage to multiple systems?" "Exactly," Izuku confirmed, using Black Whip to momentarily immobilize the creature's transformative limbs. "Endeavor, can you generate your maximum heat output for approximately 7.2 seconds? Despite his surprise at receiving tactical instructions from a student, Endeavor recognized the logic. "Yes, on my signal," Izuku directed, channeling One for All through his adapted form at 90% capacity. "Hawks, target its sensory organs simultaneously." Their coordinated assault exceeded even Izuku's calculations. Endeavor's prominence burn, combined with Hawk's feather blades targeting the creature's eyes and ears, created the perfect opening for Izuku's finishing strike. A crystallization-enhanced blow that bypassed the shock absorption to directly impact the Nomu's already taxed regeneration system. The high-end collapsed, its multiple quirks finally overwhelmed by perfectly coordinated attacks that exploited the precise weaknesses Izuku had identified. As emergency services secured the creature and treated civilian casualties, media crews swarmed the scene, capturing the unprecedented collaboration between the top heroes and a UA student. "Who authorized your intervention?" Endeavor demanded once the immediate crisis had passed. "My provisional license," Izuku replied calmly, "and the immediate threat to civilian safety." Before Endeavor could respond further, Hawks intervened with his characteristic casual demeanor. "Cut the kid some slack, Endeavor. Without him, we might still be fighting that thing, or worse." The Flame Hero's expression remained stern, but something shifted in his evaluation. "Your tactical assessment was accurate. How did you analyze its capabilities so quickly?" "My quirk adapts to threats," Izuku explained. "The longer I observe an opponent, the more specifically I can counter their abilities." This explanation, broadcast as part of the incident coverage, established Izuku in the public consciousness as more than just a promising student. He was increasingly viewed as a hero capable of turning the tide in even the most desperate situations. Returning to UA, Izuku found himself summoned to Principal Nizu's office, where Aizawa awaited with his typical stern expression. "While your intervention proved effective," Aizawa began, "unsanctioned deployment remains problematic, provisional license notwithstanding." However, Nizu continued more positively, "Your exemplary performance has accelerated certain educational plans. The faculty has approved your participation in the upcoming joint training exercise with Class 1B, where you'll be permitted to demonstrate your full capabilities under controlled conditions." The joint training exercise represented an important milestone, the first formal competition between Classes 1A and 1B since their separate development paths began. Structured as a series of 5-round team battles, it would test not only individual growth but tactical coordination. Prior to the exercise, Izuku experienced another vestige connection, this time with the third one for all user, who spoke of inspiration and education. "Your greatest power isn't adaptation or one for all," the third explained. "It's your ability to elevate those around you. A true hero doesn't merely shine brightly, they ignite the potential in others." This insight proved immediately relevant when team assignments were announced. Izuku found himself grouped with Uraraka, Ashido, and Mineta, a diverse team with complementary abilities but lacking his level of combat experience. "We're against Monoma's team," Uraraka noted with concern. "His copy quirk makes him unpredictable." Rather than imposing a strategy, Izuku gathered his teammates for a collaborative planning session. "Each of your quirks has applications beyond what you've shown so far," he observed, his adaptive insight identifying untapped potential in his classmates. For Ashido, he suggested acid combinations she had never attempted, mixing compounds that could create smoke screens, temporary platforms, or capture restraints. For Mineta, he proposed geometric patterns for his sticky balls that could create functional structures rather than simple traps. For Uraraka, he highlighted how precisely controlled gravity manipulation could enhance mobility beyond simple weightlessness. "I never thought of using my acid that way," Ashido admitted, successfully creating her first hardening compound during practice. When the actual match began, Class 1B expected to face Izuku as the primary threat while his teammates played supporting roles. Instead, they encountered a perfectly coordinated unit where each member operated at peak effectiveness. Monoma, attempting to copy Izuku's quirk, discovered a critical limitation. While he could temporarily duplicate the adaptive capability, his body lacked the developmental history to utilize it effectively. The adaptations that Izuku had refined through years of training couldn't be replicated in Monoma's 5-minute window. "Interesting," Monoma observed after his copy failed to produce the expected results. "Your quirk's true strength isn't the adaptation itself, but the accumulated adaptations you've developed over time." "Exactly," Izuku confirmed, "which is why copying it provides only the framework, not the content." The match concluded with a decisive victory for Izuku's team, not through his overwhelming power, but through the strategic application of each member's enhanced capabilities. Most notably, Ashido performed a technique she had developed just hours earlier, creating an acid variant that temporarily neutralized Monoma's copy ability by disrupting his skin contact. Subsequent rounds demonstrated similar patterns, with Izuku's strategic insights helping Class 1A members discover new applications for their quirks. By the exercise's conclusion, both classes had showcased remarkable growth, with Class 1A narrowly claiming overall victory. The true purpose of this exercise wasn't competition, Vlad King, Class 1B's teacher, explained afterward. It was cross-pollination of techniques and perspectives. Aizawa nodded in agreement. Every quirk has hidden potential that only emerges through challenge and cooperation. This philosophy received unexpected practical application when Endeavor, still establishing his approach as the #1 hero, extended internship offers to several promising students, including Izuku, Bakugo, and Todoroki. My agency needs fresh perspectives, the flame hero admitted with uncharacteristic humility. Recent events have clarified certain priorities. The internship began awkwardly, with Endeavor's gruff personality creating tension despite his genuine efforts to improve. For Todoroki, working directly under his father represented both professional opportunity and personal challenge. For Bakugo, the placement offered technical development but chafed against his independent nature. For Izuku, it provided unprecedented access to hero operations at the highest level. Their first joint patrol revealed how Endeavor's agency operated, with ruthless efficiency but minimal public engagement. Civilians respected the Flame Hero's power but maintained cautious distance from his intimidating presence. Your approval ratings remain 20 points below All Might's peak, Izuku observed carefully after their third consecutive patrol yielded similar public responses. Not because of effectiveness, but because of accessibility. Endeavor scowled. I'm not All Might. I won't perform for applause. It's not about performance, Izuku countered, his empathic adaptation allowing him to precisely identify the disconnect. It's about security. All Might made people feel safe through engagement. Different methods can achieve similar results. Before Endeavor could respond, an emergency call diverted their attention. A villain with a weather manipulation quirk had created a localized storm system, threatening a commercial district with hurricane-force winds and lightning strikes. Arriving at the scene, they found chaos. Civilians trapped in partially collapsed structures, electrical fires spreading from lightning strikes, and visibility reduced by torrential rain. Focus on the villain, Endeavor commanded Bakugo and Todoroki. I'll handle the fires. Midoriya, evacuation. The division of labor matched their strengths, but Izuku immediately identified a more efficient approach. With respect, sir, your heat signature can better locate trapped civilians through the rain. Todoroki's ice can contain the fires more effectively than extinguishing them. Bakugo and I together have better mobility to engage the airborne villain. Endeavor hesitated, unaccustomed to having his tactical decisions questioned. But the logic was sound. Fine. Revised assignments as suggested. The resulting operation proceeded with remarkable effectiveness. Endeavor located and extracted civilians with unexpected gentleness, his intimidating appearance becoming reassuring in the context of rescue. Todoroki contained fires with precision ice constructs that prevented water damage to surrounding structures. Bakugo and Izuku, using complementary aerial techniques, systematically disrupted the weather villain's concentration until his quirk destabilized. Most significantly, when a lightning bolt struck a support beam where a young child was trapped, Izuku's body adapted instantaneously, developing electrical conductivity that channeled the deadly current through his system and safely into the ground, allowing Endeavor to complete the rescue. You could have been killed, Endeavor noted afterward, genuine concern breaking through his typically harsh demeanor. My quirk adapted in time, Izuku replied simply. The risk was acceptable compared to the alternative. This incident transformed the internship's dynamic. Endeavor, recognizing the value of Izuku's adaptive perspective, began actively soliciting his input on agency operations, from patrol routines to crisis response protocols. The resulting improvements increased both effectiveness and public approval. For Todoroki, witnessing his father's willingness to learn from a student provided a pathway toward reconciliation that had previously seemed impossible. For Bakugo, the cooperative model demonstrated how different combat styles could complement rather than compete. By the internship's conclusion, Endeavor's agency had implemented dozens of Izuku's suggestions, creating a hybrid operational approach that maintained the Flame Hero's strength-based foundation while incorporating more accessible public engagement. You've given me much to consider, Endeavor acknowledged during their final debriefing. Perhaps there are multiple valid approaches to being number one. Returning to UA, Izuku found society increasingly destabilized by emerging threats. Most concerning was a vigilante calling himself Stain's heir, who targeted heroes he deemed unworthy, employing methods directly inspired by the hero killer's ideology, but with even less restraint. When the vigilante critically injured MT Lady during a public patrol, the Hero Public Safety Commission implemented emergency protocols, limiting solo patrols and establishing mandatory team configurations for all active heroes. These restrictions chafed against many heroes' operational preferences, particularly underground operators like Aizawa who relied on stealth and independence. The resulting tension created vulnerability in the hero system, exactly what the vigilante intended. He's not just attacking individuals, Izuku observed during a strategy session with classmates. He's attacking the foundation of professional heroism itself: trust, autonomy, and public confidence. So what's the counter-strategy? Todoroki asked pragmatically. Something unexpected, Izuku replied. If he's targeting the system's perceived weaknesses, we need to demonstrate its adaptability. With Aizawa's reluctant approval and strict limitations, Izuku developed an unorthodox response. A rotating team of provisional license holders from UA who would supplement regular hero patrols without the rigid structure imposed by the Safety Commission. Student involvement was authorized for emergency conditions only. The commission representative objected when presented with the plan. This qualifies, Principal Nizu countered. Our students operate under direct pro-supervision while providing the adaptability this situation requires. The resulting shadow teams deployed strategically throughout the city, not as primary responders, but as flexible support that could adapt to rapidly changing conditions. Izuku coordinated from UA's operations center, using his analytical skills to optimize deployments based on real-time threat assessments. The strategy proved immediately effective. When the vigilante attacked Kamui Woods in Mizudafu's central district, he found not an isolated hero constrained by protocols, but a coordinated response that included Todoroki and Tsuyu arriving precisely when needed. Similar scenarios played out across multiple incidents. The vigilante's carefully planned isolations consistently disrupted by the unexpected appearance of student heroes providing critical support. After the fifth such intervention, the pattern became clear. The rigid system the vigilante sought to expose had adapted in ways he hadn't anticipated. His attacks became increasingly desperate and less strategically sound. The final confrontation came during an ambush attempt against Ryukyu. The vigilante had studied her patrol patterns, identified an optimal attack location, and prepared specialized equipment to counter her dragon transformation. What he hadn't prepared for was Izuku's direct intervention. Having identified the statistical likelihood of Ryukyu being targeted next, Izuku had positioned himself nearby, not as obvious backup, but as a civilian volunteer at a local community center. When the attack came, the vigilante found his carefully planned ambush disrupted by an opponent whose body adapted to each of his techniques in real time. His blade-based fighting style, electrical stunning equipment, and smoke compounds all proved ineffective against Izuku's continuously evolving countermeasures. "Why won't you fall?" The vigilante screamed in frustration as another precisely calculated attack failed against Izuku's adapted defenses. "Because true heroism adapts," Izuku replied, his empathic adaptation allowing him to understand the core of the vigilante's misguided crusade. "The system you're attacking isn't perfect, but it learns and evolves, just like the heroes within it." The confrontation ended not with a devastating final blow, but with a precisely calibrated strike that incapacitated without seriously injuring, a demonstration of the restraint and precision that differentiated professional heroism from vigilantism. As police secured the subdued attacker, Ryukyu approached Izuku with professional appreciation. "Your strategic coordination these past weeks has been invaluable. The Commission has taken notice." Indeed, the Hero Public Safety Commission's response to the vigilante crisis and its resolution prompted significant regulatory reassessment. The rigid protocols implemented as emergency measures were revised to incorporate greater operational flexibility while maintaining necessary oversight. More significantly, the Commission formally recognized the value of UA's Shadow Team model, establishing a framework for limited student involvement in professional hero operations under specific conditions. A dramatic evolution in hero education with Izuku's adaptive approach at its foundation. This period of relative stability was shattered by international news that shocked the hero community worldwide. America's top hero, Star and Stripe, was en route to Japan following intelligence that Shigaraki, now merged with All for One and missing since the Kamino incident, had been located. Star and Stripe possessed one of the world's most formidable quirks, New Order, which allowed her to impose rules on anything she touched while knowing its name. The American Hero Commission had authorized this unprecedented international deployment based on the global threat Shigaraki/All for One represented. Before her arrival, Izuku experienced his most profound vestige connection yet, not with a single previous user, but with all of them simultaneously, appearing as a unified council. The coming conflict transcends national boundaries, Yoichi began, the first's normally gentle demeanor replaced with urgent concern. Star and Stripe's power rivals One for All in potential, but Shigaraki seeks to claim it for himself. If he succeeds, the second continued gravely, the balance will shift irreversibly. All for One with New Order would be virtually unstoppable. Your adaptive nature may be the only effective counter, the fourth added. But this will require adaptation beyond anything you've attempted previously. When the conversation ended, Izuku immediately contacted All Might, who confirmed the situation's severity through his remaining international connections. Star and Stripe was my student briefly during my time in America, the former symbol of peace explained. Her power is extraordinary, perhaps second only to One for All in potential applications. If Shigaraki obtains it, I understand, Izuku assured his mentor. What can we do? All Might's expression was pained. Officially, nothing. This is an American operation on Japanese soil, already diplomatically complicated. UA students cannot be involved. And unofficially, be prepared. All Might answered simply. If the worst happens, adaptation may be our only hope. Star and Stripe arrived in Japanese airspace the following day, accompanied by an American military aircraft. Before she could rendezvous with Japanese heroes, Shigaraki appeared, hovering above the ocean through some combination of quirks, his body grotesquely transformed by All for One's influence. The battle that ensued was visible from coastal cities, atmospheric disturbances and energy discharges creating light shows visible for kilometers. Star and Stripe's New Order demonstrated why she was considered America's greatest hero, imposing rules that temporarily removed oxygen from Shigaraki's vicinity and made his cells vulnerable to laser bombardment from her support aircraft. But Shigaraki/All for One proved more resilient than anticipated. His multiple quirks allowed him to survive conditions that should have been fatal, while steadily advancing toward his true objective, touching Star and Stripe to steal New Order. Monitoring the battle through news feeds and specialized UA equipment, Izuku made a critical decision. Despite the prohibition against student involvement, the stakes were too high for inaction. I'm going, he informed All Might, not as a UA student, but as the ninth wielder of One for All. All Might didn't attempt to dissuade him. Be careful, young Midoriya. This enemy is unlike any you've faced. Using 100% of One for All channeled through his perfectly adapted form, Izuku covered the distance to the offshore battle in minutes, his body developing aquatic propulsion adaptations for crossing the ocean surface at unprecedented speed. He arrived to find the situation deteriorating rapidly. Star and Stripe had sustained injuries from Shigaraki's decay quirk, which had evolved to propagate through air currents rather than requiring direct contact. Her support aircraft had been destroyed, its crew ejected but scattered across the ocean. Another hero? Shigaraki/All for One's distorted voice carried across the churning waters. No matter, you're too late. As the villain closed in on the weakened American hero, Izuku intercepted with perfect timing, his body already adapting to counter the airborne decay effect with accelerated cellular regeneration. Izuku Midoriya, Star and Stripe recognized immediately, despite never having met him. All Might's successor. I'll create an opening, Izuku explained rapidly. Can you still use New Order? Once more, perhaps, she confirmed, blood seeping from multiple wounds. Make it count. What followed was the most intensive adaptive evolution Izuku had ever experienced. His body reconfigured to counter not just one quirk but dozens simultaneously, developing resistances to decay, shock absorption against physical impacts, neutralization pathways against biological manipulations, and temporal stability against quirks that affected perception. Each adaptation formed instantly as Shigaraki deployed different abilities from his vast stolen arsenal. The villain's expression shifted from confidence to confusion to genuine concern as attack after attack proved ineffective against Izuku's continuously evolving countermeasures. What are you? Shigaraki demanded as another decay wave dissipated harmlessly against Izuku's adapted skin. Instead of answering, Izuku pressed his offensive, using the full integration of One for All with his adaptive capabilities to push Shigaraki into a defensive position. Black whip tendrils, crystallized striking surfaces, and perfectly optimized physical parameters combined into an assault that even Shigaraki's multiple quirks struggled to counter. Now, Izuku called to Star and Stripe, creating the critical opening they needed. The American hero lunged forward with her remaining strength, making contact with Shigaraki's exposed arm. New Order, she invoked, her quirk activating one final time, I impose this rule on Tamura Shigaraki. Izuku Midoriya cannot be defeated by evil. The conceptual rule took effect immediately, creating a metaphysical protection beyond physical adaptations. A fundamental law that the universe itself would enforce regarding interactions between Shigaraki's malevolent intent and Izuku's existence. What have you done? Shigaraki howled, recognizing the profound implication of this rule. Before he could retaliate, Izuku delivered a precisely calculated strike, one for all at 100% channeled through a perfectly adapted attack vector that bypassed Shigaraki's defensive quirks. The impact sent the villain crashing into the ocean depths, temporarily incapacitated. Turning his attention to Star and Stripe, Izuku found her condition critical, multiple systems failing from quirk-induced trauma and conventional injuries. The rule will hold, she gasped, blood bubbling from her lips. It's anchored to his very essence now. He can't defeat you, and I won't let him defeat you either, Izuku replied, his adaptive quirk responding to yet another seemingly impossible challenge. His hands began glowing with a combination of One for All's energy and his evolved temporal adaptation, similar to what he'd used on Sir Night-Eye, but more refined through subsequent development. Placing his palms on Star and Stripe's most critical injuries, he locally reversed the temporal flow of her damaged tissues, not healing in the conventional sense, but literally rewinding the damage out of existence. Impossible, she whispered as her critical injuries receded. That's not adaptation. It is, Izuku corrected gently. Adaptation to the concept of irreversible damage itself. By the time Japanese heroes and military forces arrived, the immediate crisis had passed. Shigaraki had retreated to unknown locations, presumably to recover from his injuries. Star and Stripe had been stabilized, though her quirk had been partially compromised during the battle. Most significantly, the rule she had imposed remained in effect, creating a metaphysical advantage that would prove crucial in future confrontations with All for One's merged form. The international incident created diplomatic complications but ultimately strengthened global hero cooperation. Star and Stripe's direct experience with Japan's emerging threats prompted the American Hero Commission to establish permanent liaison protocols, with All Might serving as a key advisor despite his retired status. For Izuku, the confrontation represented a pivotal evolution in his adaptive capabilities, demonstrating that his quirk could respond not only to physical threats but to conceptual and metaphysical challenges. The implications extended beyond combat to include healing, protection, and potentially even more profound applications. Returning to UA, Izuku found the campus atmosphere transformed by recent events. The school had always represented the pinnacle of hero education, but it now served as a literal fortress, one of the few locations considered truly secure against Shigaraki/All for One's emerging capabilities. This security was shattered by a devastating revelation from Principal Nizu. Intelligence indicated the presence of a traitor within UA, someone who had been feeding information to the League of Villains since before the USJ incident. We've narrowed the possibilities through process of elimination, Nizu explained during an emergency faculty meeting that included Izuku due to his central role in recent defenses. But concrete evidence remains elusive. What are the leading theories? Izuku asked, his empathic adaptation already processing the emotional undercurrents of this troubling situation. Based on access patterns and information leakage timing, the traitor must be someone with consistent access to Class 1A's activities and schedules, Aizawa stated grimly. That includes students, certain faculty, and support staff. The investigation proceeded with extreme caution, surveillance implemented so discreetly that even those being monitored remained unaware. Izuku contributed his unique perspective, using his adaptive intuition to identify behavioral anomalies too subtle for conventional observation. The breakthrough came unexpectedly during a routine training exercise. Izuku's enhanced perception noticed something unusual about Aoyama's equipment maintenance. Microscopic devices embedded in his support gear that transmitted data to an external receiver. Rather than immediately reporting this discovery, Izuku's empathic adaptation urged a different approach. The emotional signature he detected from Aoyama wasn't malice or ideological alignment with villains. It was fear, desperation, and profound shame. Approaching his classmate privately, Izuku created a communication-proof environment using a combination of electromagnetic interference and sound dampening techniques. I know about the transmitters, he stated simply, watching Aoyama's expression collapse into terror. But I don't think you're doing this willingly. The truth emerged through tears and trembling confessions. Aoyama's parents, desperate for their quirkless child to have powers, had made a devil's bargain years earlier, accepting a quirk from All for One in exchange for ongoing servitude. The laser naval quirk Aoyama possessed wasn't natural but artificially implanted, with his family perpetually indebted to the villain. "He'll kill my parents if I don't comply," Aoyama whispered brokenly. "I've tried to minimize what I share, to be vague when possible, but instead of condemnation, Izuku offered understanding, his empathic adaptation allowing him to genuinely comprehend the impossible position Aoyama faced. "You're not a villain," Izuku assured him. "You're a victim being used as a tool. But together, we can turn this against All for One." The counterintelligence operation that followed was designed with precision. Rather than exposing Aoyama immediately, Izuku worked with a small circle including Principal Nizu and Aizawa to utilize the compromise channel, feeding carefully crafted misinformation while extracting valuable intelligence about All for One's communications methods. For Aoyama, this redemptive opportunity provided a path forward that hadn't previously seemed possible. "I never wanted to betray anyone," he confessed during a strategy session. "I just didn't see any other option." "There's always another option," Izuku replied, his adaptive empathy connecting deeply with Aoyama's struggle. "Sometimes we just need help finding it." The intelligence gathered through this operation proved invaluable, providing insight into All for One's command structure, future targets, and most critically, the evolution of Shigaraki's merged form. The villain's body was undergoing continued transformation, developing capabilities that combine the worst aspects of both Shigaraki's decay and All for One's quirk accumulation. "He's preparing for something major," Aizawa concluded after analyzing the intelligence patterns. "Something that will require every resource we can muster." That something became apparent sooner than anyone anticipated. Simultaneous attacks erupted across Japan, Nomu assaults more coordinated than previous incidents, targeting critical infrastructure rather than random destruction. This wasn't mere terrorism, but strategic dismantling of society's support systems. As professional heroes mobilized nationwide, Izuku experienced his most profound vestige connection, a transcendent state beyond individual communication with previous users. One for All's collective consciousness merged temporarily with his own, creating a unified awareness that processed tactical information with unprecedented clarity. This is the beginning of the end. The collective vestiges communicated. All for One has initiated his final strategy. Societal collapse followed by reconstruction under his control. The realization crystallized Izuku's purpose with perfect clarity. This wasn't just another crisis. It was the culmination of a conflict that had persisted across 9 generations of One for All wielders. UA became the natural command center for the hero response, with Izuku's strategic insights proving crucial for deployment decisions. Professional heroes who might normally hesitate to accept guidance from a student readily adapted to the reality that his unique combination of abilities provided invaluable tactical advantages. Distribute forces according to this pattern, Izuku directed, creating a deployment map that accounted for quirk complementarity, response times, and civilian protection priorities. Facum's team to Osaka's industrial sector, Ryukyu's aerial units to secure power distribution nodes, Endeavor's team to the government district. The resulting coordination exceeded conventional hero operations, creating a response network that managed to contain the initial attack wave despite its unprecedented scale. But this was merely the prelude. The main assault came directly to UA itself, Shigaraki/All for One personally leading a force of high-end Nomu and specialized villain teams in an attack on the fortified campus. "He's coming for One for All," All Might confirmed grimly as defensive positions were established. This was always his endgame. As UA's defenders prepared for the onslaught, Izuku moved to the front line, not from bravado but strategic necessity. Star and Stripes' imposed rule remained in effect. Izuku Midoriya cannot be defeated by evil. This metaphysical protection made him the ideal anchor point for their defensive strategy. The battle began with devastating intensity. Shigaraki's enhanced decay quirk dissolved UA's outer barriers on contact, while specialized Nomu breached secondary defenses with quirks specifically designed for penetration and demolition. Professional heroes engaged the vanguard while UA students coordinated evacuation of support staff and younger students. Class 1A, having developed the most combat experience, formed specialized units that complemented the pro-hero response. Izuku moved through the battlefield with transcendent awareness, his body continuously adapting to each threat, while One for All's unified consciousness provided perfect tactical clarity. Black Whip tendrils restrained multiple opponents simultaneously, crystallization protected allies from decay waves, and his empathic adaptation allowed him to anticipate attacks before they materialized. When Shigaraki finally breached the central courtyard, he found Izuku waiting, alone by choice but connected to the entire defensive network through tactical communications. The ninth wielder, Shigaraki / All for One's distorted voice carried a mixture of hatred and covetous desire. My brother's legacy, finally within reach. This ends today, Izuku replied with quiet certainty. One way or another. Their initial exchange shattered the courtyard's reinforced concrete, creating impact craters visible from kilometers away. Shigaraki unleashed his full arsenal. Decay waves that could disintegrate city blocks, strength that rivaled All Might's prime, and dozens of supplementary quirks acquired through generations of theft. But for each attack, Izuku's body developed a perfect counter. Adaptive immunity to decay, structural reinforcement against physical impacts, neutralizing agents against biological manipulations. The rule imposed by Star and Stripe ensured that no matter how powerful the assault, it could not achieve decisive victory against him. As their battle intensified, Shigaraki's frustration mounted. "Why won't you fall?" he screamed, decay spreading from his body in all directions. "Because I'm not fighting alone," Izuku answered, his voice calm despite the chaos surrounding them. Indeed, while Shigaraki focused his hatred on Izuku, the coordinated hero response had systematically dismantled his supporting forces. The high-end Nomu had been neutralized through precisely targeted team attacks. The villain squads had been separated and contained by student-pro partnerships utilizing complementary quirks. Most significantly, Aoyama, determined to redeem himself, had led a specialized team that disrupted the villain's communication network, isolating Shigaraki from his remaining allies. As Shigaraki realized his strategic position had collapsed, his attacks became increasingly desperate, sacrificing precision for raw destructive power. But each wild assault met a perfectly adapted defense, with Izuku conserving energy through efficient counter techniques rather than matching power with power. "You can't win," Izuku stated with certainty born of adaptive insight. "Not just because of Star's rule, but because your fundamental approach is flawed. True power comes from cooperation, not theft and domination." In response, Shigaraki attempted his most devastating technique, a combined decay warp effect that created disintegration portals throughout the battlefield, threatening even those at safe distances. Izuku's adaptive quirk responded with its most profound evolution yet, extending beyond his physical form to create a field effect that neutralized the decay propagation entirely. This wasn't merely adaptation to a specific threat, but adaptation to the concept of entropic acceleration itself. In that moment of defensive transcendence, Izuku recognized his opportunity. Shigaraki had committed his resources fully to this failed attack, leaving momentary gaps in his defensive quirks. With perfect timing, Izuku channeled 100% of One for All through his transcendently adapted form, combined with the unified consciousness of all previous wielders. The resulting strike wasn't merely physical but metaphysical, targeting not just Shigaraki's body but the parasitic consciousness of All for One that had merged with him. The impact created a shockwave that cleared the clouds above UA, visible as a pillar of light that momentarily connected ground to sky. When the energy dissipated, Shigaraki lay motionless in a crater, physically intact but fundamentally transformed. As Izuku approached cautiously, he detected something unexpected through his empathic adaptation. The merged consciousness had separated, All for One's parasitic presence forcibly expelled by the metaphysical impact, leaving only Tamura Shigaraki's original identity. "Tenko," Izuku said softly, using Shigaraki's birth name as he knelt beside the defeated villain. "Can you hear me?" The response came weakly, voice lacking the distorted quality of the merged form. "Why didn't you kill me?" "Because that's not what heroes do," Izuku replied, placing his hand on Shigaraki's shoulder. A touch that should have triggered decay but somehow didn't. "And because I understand what created you." Using his evolved empathic adaptation, Izuku connected directly with Shigaraki's consciousness, experiencing the childhood trauma, abandonment, and manipulation that had transformed Tenko Shimura into the villain Tamura Shigaraki. This wasn't mere sympathy but literal adaptive understanding, his quirk allowing him to comprehend the full developmental pathway of Shigaraki's damaged psyche. "Your grandmother was the seventh wielder of One for All," Izuku revealed gently. "Nana Shimura entrusted her power to All Might to protect the world, including you." She would have saved you if she could. Something broke in Shigaraki's expression, hatred giving way to confusion, then to the grief of a lost child that had been buried beneath layers of villainous conditioning. "I remember her," he whispered, tears forming in eyes that had known only rage for years. "Before All for One found me." As medical and containment teams secured the area, Izuku maintained this connection, his adaptive understanding creating a bridge across what had seemed an insurmountable divide between hero and villain. This wasn't naive reconciliation, but the beginning of a healing process that acknowledged the reality of Shigaraki's crimes while recognizing the traumatized child beneath. The aftermath of what would become known as the Final War transformed Hero Society fundamentally. With All for One's consciousness neutralized and his organization dismantled, the immediate threat had passed, but the structural vulnerabilities he had exploited remained. In the months that followed, Izuku became central to reconstruction efforts, not just of physical infrastructure but of the hero system itself. His adaptive understanding provided unique insights into the reforms needed to address root causes rather than symptoms. The old model created clear divisions: heroes, villains, civilians, he explained during a foundation-setting conference. But reality is more complex. Many villains are created by systemic failures. Many civilians have untapped potential to contribute. Many heroes operate with incomplete understanding of those they protect. The resulting reforms emphasized integration rather than division, creating pathways for rehabilitation, systems for early intervention with at-risk individuals, and expanded definitions of heroism that included non-combat contributions to societal well-being. For Shigaraki, this new approach meant neither simplistic forgiveness nor permanent condemnation, but a carefully structured rehabilitation program that acknowledged his crimes while addressing the trauma and manipulation that had shaped him. Under secure conditions, he began the long process of confronting his actions and reclaiming the identity of Tenko Shimura. 1 year after the Final War, UA held its graduation ceremony for the class that had experienced more combat than any previous generation of students. As Izuku accepted his hero license, no longer provisional but full professional certification, All Might presented him with a special commendation. "The symbol of peace was a title I carried," the former #1 hero stated before the assembled audience. "But symbols evolve as society's needs change. Today, we recognize not just a new symbol, but a new definition of what heroism can achieve." The formal announcement surprised no one who had witnessed recent events. Izuku Midoriya, operating under his hero name Deku, was officially recognized as the new symbol of peace, the first to be acknowledged by global hero organizations rather than just Japanese authorities. In his acceptance speech, Izuku emphasized that this recognition belonged not to him alone but to the collaborative effort that had preserved society through multiple crises. "Adaptive heroism isn't about a single powerful individual," he explained. "It's about systems that learn, communities that support each other, and connections that bridge differences. The true symbol isn't a person but a principle, that together we can adapt to any challenge." This philosophy became the foundation for his professional hero work. Rather than establishing a traditional agency, Izuku created an innovative network that connected heroes, support specialists, rehabilitation experts, and community representatives. An adaptive system that could respond to evolving needs rather than fixed threats. His former classmates, now professional heroes in their own right, integrated seamlessly into this network while maintaining their individual specialties. Uraraka focused on disaster response, Todoroki on security operations, Ida on coordination systems, Yaoyorozu on support equipment innovation. Even Bakugo, whose competitive relationship with Izuku had evolved into grudging respect and eventually genuine partnership, found his place, specializing in high-risk operations where his explosive quirk and uncompromising standards proved invaluable. 5 years after graduation, as Izuku supervised a training session for the newest generation of UA students, he experienced a final vestige connection, different from all previous manifestations. The unified consciousness of One for All appeared not as separate individuals but as a single integrated presence, with Yoichi at its center. The cycle approaches completion. The first user communicated. "One for All has achieved what we hoped, not merely defeating our brother, but healing the division he created. Is it time to pass it on?" Izuku asked, understanding intuitively the natural progression of the quirk. "Not yet," Yoichi replied with a gentle smile. "Your adaptive nature has transformed One for All itself. The power no longer consumes its wielders as it once did. Your journey continues, both as its current wielder and as the one who will eventually guide its final transition. Final transition? From weapon to legacy, Yoichi explained. One for All began as a counter to All for One's theft and domination. But through you, it has become something more, a repository of heroic understanding that transcends combat capability. As the vision faded, Izuku found himself looking at the training students with renewed perspective. Among them were children who had been rescued during various crises, now developing their own heroic paths. Eri, now a teenager with complete control of her rewind quirk, was helping a classmate refine a healing technique. Koda, whose initial hatred of heroes had transformed into dedicated purpose, was demonstrating precise water manipulation for rescue applications. Most poignantly, a young boy with green hair and determined eyes was working diligently on control exercises, Izuku's own son, inheriting not his quirks but his dedication to growth and improvement. This, Izuku realized, was the true meaning of One for All's evolution, not merely power passed from wielder to wielder, but understanding transmitted across generations. His adaptive journey had transformed not just himself but the very concept of heroism, creating a system that could continuously evolve to meet whatever challenges the future might bring. As he watched the next generation training, Izuku smiled with quiet certainty. Whatever came next, they would adapt together.
He didn't ask for power. He didn't ask for pain. But when the world demanded a new kind of protector, he became it. Through broken bones and quiet doubts, through every fight that tried to end him, he kept moving forward. Izuku Midoriya isn't a hero because he's the strongest. He's a hero because he never gave up on the idea that anyone, even the ones cast aside, can stand tall, adapt, and protect what matters most. So, if this story hit you the way it hit me, don't forget it. Carry it with you, because this was never just about powers. It was about what we become when the world tries to break us. Thanks for riding the timeline with me, Legends. Until next time, stay brave, stay relentless, and never stop evolving.